Outlive, the science and art of longevity. Here is a summary of the key points. The author recalls witnessing his first patient death while volunteering at a hospital during medical school. A woman in her 30s came into the ER with shortness of breath and died despite resuscitation efforts. This experience haunted the author for years. The author says death comes at two speeds, fast and slow. In inner-city Baltimore, where the author did his surgical residency, rapid death from violence was common. Slow death from chronic disease was also rampant. The author questions whether the woman's death could have been prevented with better access to medical care. He wonders what was wrong with her and what was happening before she came to the ER. The author chose to do his residency at Johns Hopkins because of its excellence in surgery, but he was unprepared for the amount of chronic disease and slow death he encountered. This led him to question how medicine was practiced. The author suggests a need to address the root causes of why so many people were getting sick and dying in the first place. Simply treating disease was not enough. A new framework was needed to promote health and longevity. This experience shaped the author's perspective on health, disease, and longevity, forming this book's basis. The key is taking the long view and finding ways to delay or avoid chronic disease and slow death. The author used to be a surgeon who treated trauma and cancer patients. Although skilled at saving lives in emergencies, they were less successful at helping chronic disease patients avoid slow deaths. The medical community is generally focused on stopping patients from dying instead of preventing disease in the first place. They often intervene too late when diseases have already progressed significantly. Although modern medicine has put much effort into treating conditions like cancer, progress has been limited. Death rates for many chronic diseases remain high. The author argues that we must shift to intervening much earlier to prevent or stop chronic diseases before they become lethal. The chronic diseases of aging, like heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes, often develop many years before they are detectable or cause symptoms. Although they typically become more familiar with age, they usually take a long time to become fatal. We often intervene too late, like trying to catch fallen eggs off a building. The author believes longevity has two components: lifespan, how long you live, and health span, how well you live. Their goal is to help patients achieve longevity and an extended health span. The key is determining a patient's likely health trajectory if they stay on their current path and making changes to set them on a better course. The warning signs of a poor circuit often appear in middle age, as people see peers dealing with health issues or dying prematurely. To achieve longevity and a long health span, we must confront the four horsemen of chronic disease: heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's/dementia, and diabetes. The only way to change your health trajectory is to take action now. Wait until the condition becomes advanced or disabling is often too late. Mainstream medicine waits until disease diagnosis before intervening rather than taking a preventive approach. This is the wrong approach for chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, which develop over time. Early intervention is needed. The author discovered he had become insulin resistant and overweight at age 36, despite exercising and eating what he thought was a healthy diet. He decided to educate himself on nutrition and longevity to get back on track. The horsemen of aging, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, share standard features and causes. They can often be prevented or delayed by reducing specific risk factors. But medicine typically treats them only after they become entrenched. Many assumptions about health, like the standard cholesterol test, are oversimplified or misleading. Normal health markers are not the same as optimal. Many people have underdiagnosed conditions like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that increase disease risk. Diets are not one-size-fits-all. We must focus on how nutrients interact with our metabolism and physiology. Protein becomes especially important as we age. Exercise is the most potent anti-aging drug. But most people don't exercise enough, and some exercise can do more harm than good. Emotional health is as important as physical health for longevity. Emotional suffering can undermine health in many ways. The book aims to provide a balanced, evidence-based perspective on longevity rather than promoting restrictive diets, meditation, superfoods, or other unproven interventions. The author was frustrated with the conservatism and resistance to change in medicine during his residency. He left his residency program 2 years early to work as a consultant with McKinsey & Damp Company. At McKinsey, the author worked on credit risk, helping banks estimate unexpected losses. Through this work, the author and his team discovered the brewing mortgage crisis and housing bubble bursting in 2007 before most others. Delivering this news to bank executives was like having a terminal diagnosis. The author saw the executives go through the 5 stages of grief as they learned the information. This experience showed the author that medicine has a blind spot in understanding risk. Unlike finance, treatment needs to focus more on risk assessment and mitigation. The author argues that medicine needs to shift to focus on risk assessment, chronic disease prevention, and improving health span. This Medicine 3.0 approach is proactive rather than reactive. It aims to avoid disease in decline, not just treat them once they occur. The author sees his role as helping translate insights from science into practical actions people can take to live longer and healthier lives. This requires understanding the science and nuance to apply it appropriately based on a person's unique situation. The goal is to help people outlive, both live longer and better. To change medicine and public health, patients and physicians must demand a new proactive, prevention-focused approach, not just accept the status quo. Chronic disease is preventable, not inevitable, but medicine must change to make that possible. Investors calculate risk and reward analytically, while the medical profession often approaches risk more emotionally. The Hippocratic Oath states, "First, not harm," but that is unhelpful and sanctimonious. All treatments and actions have chances, the key is understanding and analyzing them. The author gives an example of a 17-year-old stab victim whose pericardium had to be cut open to save his life, even though it caused harm. Doing nothing would have been riskier. Risk must be calculated based on the specifics of the situation. The author divides medical history into 3 eras: Medicine 1.0, based on observation and guesswork, from Hippocrates to the 19th century. Some insights were correct, but many were wrong, like the theory of humor. Hippocrates' significant contribution was recognizing diseases were natural, not supernatural. Medicine 2.0 began in the 19th century with the germ theory of disease. This led to antiseptics, antibiotics, and modern sanitation. However, the transition took centuries and was resisted. Ignaz Semmelweis hypothesized that childbed fever was spread by doctors not washing hands but was ostracized. Lister demonstrated antiseptic surgery the year Semmelweis died. This era was based on the scientific method of hypothesis, experimentation, and evidence. They are potentially beginning a new era, Medicine 3.0, with continued rapid progress. For example, recent successes against hepatitis C, HIV, and COVID-19. New technologies like mRNA vaccines and gene therapies could enable targeted, personalized treatments. In summary, medical progress is not linear but comes in spurts after periods of stagnation. Risk has always been part of medicine, and the key is analyzing it rationally and scientifically instead of avoiding it altogether. Discoveries can rapidly accelerate progress when built on a foundation of scientific thinking. Medicine in the 21st century has advanced rapidly in treating acute illnesses and injuries but has made little progress against chronic diseases. The author argues that we need a new way of thinking about health and medicine focused on prevention, personalized care, and properly assessing risk to make progress against chronic diseases. The author provides the story of Sophie, the mother of his college friend Becky, to illustrate the typical decline many experiences in old age. Although Sophie was vibrant and active for most of her life, in her 70s, she suffered a fall while gardening that caused severe and chronic pain, limiting her mobility and activities. Her physical decline was soon followed by dementia, and she died at 83 after a few years in a debilitated state. The author sees Sophie's story as emblematic of what often happens to older people today. Their final years are marked by pain, disability, and loss of independence in the activities that give life meaning. Although Sophie's death was seen as a blessing because it ended her suffering, the author laments the loss of her ability to thrive and find joy during what should have been her golden years. From this story, the author lays out the objective, strategy, and tactics for this book. Objective: the goal is to help readers avoid Sophie's fate and maintain health and vitality into old age to continue engaging in the most critical activities. Strategy: the strategy or approach is what the author calls Medicine 3.0. This incorporates the latest scientific insights into health and longevity, emphasizing precision and personalization. The key is taking a whole person, long-term perspective to promote health span, not just lifespan. Tactics: the specific recommendations and interventions that comprise the strategy. These include optimizing nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, and healthy behaviors. They also involve judicious and prudent use of conventional and unconventional medical treatments tailored to the individual. The overall theme is patient empowerment and shared decision-making. The objective, strategy, and tactics laid out here form the roadmap for the rest of the book. By following Medicine 3.0, readers can aim to live long and well into their later years. The author tells the story of Sophie, whose last 10 years were difficult and unhappy, to illustrate the importance of planning for one's later decades. He calls this period the marginal decade, characterized by diminishment and limitation. The author asks his patients to envision an alternative, healthier future for themselves in their later years. This exercise forces them to focus on their endgame and the importance of maximizing their health span, the length of time they remain in good health. The author visualizes lifespan and health span as mathematical functions. The typical modern lifespan includes a gradual decline in health starting in midlife and steepening around age 70 to 75. Medicine can prolong lifespan but often without significantly improving quality of life. The ideal trajectory is to maintain or even improve health span well into one's 70s and 80s, resulting in a longer, better life with more good years. This is called squaring the longevity curve. The fundamental strategy is to lengthen lifespan while extending health span, delaying death from diseases like cancer and heart disease while slowing age-related decline. Most people wrongly focus on tactics, like diet and exercise, without developing an overall strategy. Strategy comes before tactics, just as in war. The author uses the example of Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman to illustrate the difference between strategy and tactics. Ali's objective was to win the match. His strategy was to frustrate and exhaust the younger, stronger Foreman by making him angry and chasing Ali around the ring. The tactics, like leading with noticeable punches, flowed from the strategy. Strategy provides the overall approach and conceptual framework to achieve one's objectives. The key to victory is first developing the right strategy based on science and tailored to one's goals. Tactics and specific interventions flow from one system. Without the right design, efforts are misdirected, and defeat is more likely. The process is the scaffolding for how to achieve longevity and health. The author uses the analogy of Muhammad Ali's famous fight against George Foreman to illustrate the importance of having a sound strategy before engaging in tactics. A good design requires studying your opponent to identify their strengths and weaknesses, then devising a plan to overcome them. Time is working against us for longevity, not for us like it was for Ali. Aging makes us vulnerable to disease and death. Rather than define health span as simply being free of infection, the author describes 3 vectors of deterioration to consider: cognitive decline, slowed processing speed, fading memory, reduced executive function, personality changes, potential dementia. The goal is to minimize this. Physical decline and loss of function, loss of muscle, bone, stamina, stability, and balance, leading to frailty and loss of independence. Chronic disease and injury can accelerate this. Most people need to pay more attention to the effects of aging on their abilities and overestimate what they'll be capable of in old age without a fitness plan. Emotional health can affect people of any age but often comes to a crisis point in middle age. How we deal with it impacts our physical health, happiness, and survival. True longevity means avoiding or minimizing decline in all 3 areas simultaneously. Living to 100 with severe cognitive or physical impairment is not ideal. Neither is achieving a high quality of life only to have it cut short prematurely. In summary, the author states that longevity requires a strategic approach to understanding and addressing aging by maintaining cognitive, physical, and emotional health for as long as possible. Tactics, like fad diets or supplements, are only enough with this broader perspective. Death is inevitable, but deterioration and suffering leading up to the end are often preventable. Health span and lifespan are closely intertwined. Improving health span leads to increased lifespan. The tactics for longevity fall into 5 domains: exercise, nutrition, sleep, emotional health, and drugs/supplements. Exercise is the most potent longevity drug. It prevents cognitive and physical decline and reduces the risk of death from all causes. The goals are strength, stability, aerobic efficiency, and peak capacity. For nutrition, focus on calories, not too much, not too little. The approach will vary for each person, no rigid diets. Sleep is critical for health span and longevity. Lack of sleep triggers negative health consequences like insulin resistance and cognitive decline. Emotional health is as important as the other domains. Work to address past suffering, change behaviors, and heal relationships. The evidence for longevity tactics comes from various data sources, not just RCTs. RCTs have limitations for complex, long-term interventions. Need to triangulate multiple data types. The strategy is evidence-informed, not strictly evidence-based. Consider all available evidence to determine the best approach, then adapt based on new information. We must take a broad, holistic approach to longevity that incorporates exercise, nutrition, sleep, emotional health, and appropriate drug/supplement use. The evidence we rely on comes from multiple sources, not just RCTs, due to the complex nature of the problem. The strategy must remain flexible and adapt to new information. The ultimate goal is maximizing healthspan, not just lifespan, by slowing or reversing the cognitive, physical, and emotional decline. Centenarians, who live to 100 years or older, provide helpful insights into longevity despite their small numbers. While observational studies of centenarians can't prove causation, the fact that they represent our species of interest, humans, gives their data more relevance. Animal models, like mice and worms, provide a wealth of experimental data on lifespan extension and healthspan improvement. However, the applicability of these models to humans is limited since they are not human. Interventions shown to work across multiple species, from worms to primates, are more compelling. Studies of cardiovascular disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes, called the horsemen, provide insights into how these diseases start, progress, share underlying factors, and could be prevented. Understanding the vulnerabilities of these diseases can inform a prevention strategy. Molecular and mechanistic aging studies in human and animal models have revealed cellular changes that occur with age and disease. This suggests ways aging and disease could be manipulated through drugs, lifestyle changes, or other means. Mendelian randomization uses genetic variation and its random distribution in the population to determine whether an observed relationship, like that seen in epidemiology, between a risk factor and an outcome is causal. Unlike epidemiology, it avoids many confounding factors and biases. For example, it showed that low LDL cholesterol does not cause cancer, despite an observed link in some studies. Absolute certainty is rare in biology. We work in probabilities and aim to reduce uncertainty. Experiments can only increase or decrease confidence in a hypothesis. Without large clinical trials, we make decisions based on the preponderance of evidence and our risk tolerance. The goal is longevity alpha, gaining an advantage in lifespan and health span. The strategy and tactics for achieving longevity alpha will evolve as new evidence comes to light and individuals' age and health conditions change. Plans must adapt to life's uncertainties. We are fascinated by centenarians and want to know their secret to longevity, but rigorous research shows their extreme longevity may be due more to luck and genes than lifestyle. Studies of centenarians show that, contrary to expectations, they do not necessarily lead the healthiest lifestyles. Many smoke, drink, are overweight and do not exercise regularly. Their longevity seems primarily due to delaying or escaping diseases of aging like cancer, heart disease, and dementia. While genes account for 20 to 30% of lifespan variation in the general population, they matter much more for extreme longevity. Having centenarian siblings or parents dramatically increases your chances of becoming one. For most people, though, genes will not take them past average life expectancy. The critical question is whether we can mimic centenarians' traits to extend our lifespans, even without their beneficial genes. The answer is yes. Centenarians delay aging diseases, often by decades, and many remain in good health and functioning for long. Though centenarians have high mortality after 100, most still die from aging diseases much later. About 1 in 5 centenarians escape cancer until 100, versus 72 for ordinary people. 1 in 4 escape heart disease until 92, versus 75, and they get conditions like osteoporosis and dementia many years later. Contrary to stereotypes of old age as declining, centenarians often remain in good health and functioning. Studies show high cognitive and physical functioning test scores, especially for men, who may have survived earlier health issues. Women centenarians outnumber men 4 to 1, likely because women delay vulnerability to diseases like heart attacks that weed men out earlier. In summary, centenarians hope to extend healthy lifespans beyond average if we can mimic how they delay aging diseases. Their longevity seems due more to luck and genes than lifestyle alone, but by strategically managing health, we may also blow past 80 and beyond. Centenarians, people who live to 100 and beyond, tend to remain in good health for longer and experience a shorter period of decline at the end of life. This is known as a compression of morbidity. They are often healthier at 90 than average people at 60. Centenarians won a kind of genetic lottery. Researchers have had trouble identifying specific longevity genes common to all centenarians. Evolution has yet to be strongly selected for genes promoting longevity past the reproductive years. However, a few candidate longevity genes have emerged, including variants of the AP gene. The AP2 variant is associated with lower Alzheimer's risk and greater longevity. The E4 variant is associated with higher Alzheimer's risk and lower longevity. AP is involved in cholesterol and glucose metabolism. We should focus on these areas to emulate centenarians' longevity and health. While AP and a couple of other genes are correlated with longevity, hundreds or thousands of genes are likely involved, each contributing minor effects. Longevity arises from many genetic influences and environmental and lifestyle factors. The goal is to achieve longevity and extended health span through intentional means, not by genetic luck. We want to emulate centenarians' outcomes through a comprehensive strategy, not by chance. In summary, centenarians provide an aspirational model of aging by staying healthier for longer, with a shorter period of decline at life's end. Though their longevity seems partly due to winning a genetic lottery, we may be able to reverse engineer some of the effects through lifestyle, diet, exercise, and other strategies focused on factors like cholesterol, glucose, and cognitive health. The key is achieving longevity and health span through intentional means, not just lucky genes. Centenarians provide clues to longevity through the natural experiments of the genome interacting with the environment and behaviors. No single longevity gene combines small genetic factors and environmental/behavioral influences. FOXO3 gene is associated with longevity across populations. It regulates other genes involved in cellular health and repair. FOXO3 can be activated through behaviors like fasting and exercise. Gene expression, which is influenced by environment and behaviors, seems linked to longevity. Centenarians have youthful gene expression patterns. To emulate centenarians, focus on delaying the onset of chronic diseases and maintaining health span, not just increasing lifespan. Attack diseases earlier through prevention and common mechanisms, not one at a time. Key to centenarian longevity seems to be resilience, the ability to resist diseases and decline. We can cultivate this through very early, generalized prevention of diseases by targeting familiar drivers and disease-specific prevention. Overlapping approaches, improving metabolic health/preventing diabetes may reduce risks for other diseases. Some exercise helps with resilience and specific disease risks. Maintaining health span and delaying frailty is critical. The centenarian's secret is resilience through incremental changes and avoiding drastic interventions. Make minor improvements through lifestyle and environment to earn increased longevity and health span. The summary outlines the main points around emulating centenarian longevity through developing resilience, delaying disease onset, and making small incremental changes. It touches on the roles of genetics, gene expression, environment, behavior, and prevention. The key is to take an integrated approach across diseases, health span, and resilience rather than addressing issues in isolation. Rapamycin is a compound discovered in the 1970s from soil samples taken from Easter Island. Initially developed as an antifungal agent, it was found to have powerful effects on the immune system and cell growth. Rapamycin acts on a protein complex called mTOR that regulates cell growth, metabolism, and longevity. mTOR is highly conserved across species, indicating its evolutionary importance. When mTOR is activated, cells prioritize growth and reproduction. When mTOR is suppressed, cells survive, slowing growth and increasing longevity. In 2009, a study found that rapamycin extended lifespan in mice by 9 to 13% even when administered late in life. This was the first time a drug was shown to extend maximum lifespan in mammals. The results were replicated in multiple labs, giving credibility to the findings. The potential implications of this discovery are enormous. A drug that can extend the human lifespan by even a modest amount could substantially impact health and society. Rapamycin has already been approved to prevent organ transplant rejection and treat certain cancers. The 2009 study suggests it may have broader applications for longevity and health span. More research is still needed to determine if the effects in mice translate to humans. The story of rapamycin's discovery is remarkable. A sample of soil from Easter Island contained a bacterium that produced a potent compound. Through a series of chance events and one scientist's determination, this compound was developed into a drug that has saved countless lives. Its potential for extending human longevity is still being explored. That covers the key highlights and main takeaways from the story. Let me know if you want me to clarify or expand on any part of the summary. Rapamycin has been shown to extend lifespan in mice, yeast, and fruit flies, likely by temporarily inhibiting mTOR activity. Rapamycin's life-extending effects suggest that reducing mTOR signaling may have anti-aging benefits. In contrast, other hyped anti-aging supplements like petrol and nicotinamide riboside failed to extend lifespan in mice. There is no evidence these supplements work in humans. The idea that calorie restriction extended lifespan dates back centuries and was popularized by 16th-century Venetian Alvise Cornaro. Modern studies have found calorie restriction extends lifespan in nearly all animals tested, from yeast to mice to dogs. Calorie restriction activates cellular pathways involved in stress resistance and energy efficiency, especially AMPK and autophagy. AMPK responds to low nutrients by stimulating mitochondria production and inhibiting mTOR. Autophagy is a cellular recycling process that breaks down old cell components to reuse. While extreme calorie restriction is onerous for most humans, studying how it extends animal lifespan has revealed critical insights into aging. Calorie restriction enhances health and longevity in part by reducing growth signaling and promoting cellular recycling. The life-extending effects of rapamycin and calorie restriction suggest that temporarily reducing growth and promoting cellular recycling may have anti-aging benefits. However, extreme interventions may have unintended consequences, and their effects on humans are still unknown. More moderate strategies targeting these pathways could potentially extend the human health span. Autophagy is a cellular recycling process that declines with age. Impaired autophagy is linked to neurodegenerative diseases and aging. Mice lacking an autophagy gene age rapidly. Rapamycin, an immunosuppressant drug, can boost autophagy. It has shown the potential to extend lifespan and health span in animals. However, rapamycin side effects, especially immunosuppression, have hindered testing it for human longevity. A 2014 study found that giving rapamycin in cycles rather than daily enhanced the immune response to a flu vaccine in older adults. This suggests rapamycin may act more as an immune modulator than an immunosuppressant, depending on the dosing. This opens the possibility of using rapamycin for longevity while avoiding unwanted side effects. Matt Kaberlein is testing rapamycin in pet dogs to determine if it can boost health span. Preliminary results show rapamycin improved heart and gum health in older dogs. If the larger trial is successful, rapamycin may become more commonly used for longevity in humans, though regulatory and safety hurdles remain. The FDA approved a trial of the diabetes drug metformin for longevity based on evidence it may lower cancer risk and boost lifespan. The trial will test if metformin delays aging-related disease onset as a proxy for effects on aging. Rapamycin may have even more significant potential for a similar human problem. What we eat and how we metabolize it significantly impact longevity, based on research into mTOR, rapamycin, calorie restriction, and metformin. In summary, research into autophagy, mTOR inhibition, and metabolism-altering drugs points to promising new longevity therapies. However, more testing is still needed to determine effective and safe human interventions. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD, and non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, NASH, were mysterious conditions that caused fat accumulation and damage in the livers of non-drinkers. These were first noticed in the 1950s but not named until 1980. They have become ubiquitous, affecting over 25% of the world's population. NAFLD and NASH often have no symptoms and go undetected. They are usually first noticed when liver enzyme tests like ALT come back elevated, though normal reference ranges may be too high. NAFLD is the first stage, caused simply by excess fat in the liver. NASH is NAFLD, plus inflammation and liver damage. At first, both are reversible through weight loss and lifestyle changes. If left untreated, NASH can lead to permanent liver scarring and damage, cirrhosis. But many people are unaware they have NAFLD or NASH until significant harm has already been done. So, in summary, NAFLD and NASH are silent epidemics of excess fat and inflammation in the liver that are highly prevalent but underdiagnosed. Catching and treating them early is critical to preventing long-term liver damage, especially from NASH. But our normal standards and outdated medical practices have allowed these diseases to spread widely before detection. The liver is remarkably resilient and regenerative. It can recover from damage and even regenerate itself after partial removal. However, if non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, NASH, progresses to cirrhosis, the liver becomes scarred and unable to function correctly. Cirrhosis can be fatal without a liver transplant. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD, and NASH are signs of metabolic dysfunction and can lead to other diseases like type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. These are known as the Four Horsemen diseases. Metabolic health is more than weight or body mass index, BMI. Up to 30 to 40% of normal weight people and 30% of obese people can be metabolically unhealthy. Metabolic health refers to risk factors like high blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, high triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol, and excess abdominal fat. You have metabolic syndrome if you have 3 or more of these risk factors. Metabolism refers to how the body processes nutrients. In metabolically healthy people, nutrients are used and stored correctly. In metabolically unhealthy people, excess nutrients are in the wrong places, like the liver and abdominal fat. The primary hormone that controls metabolism is insulin, which helps shuttle glucose into cells. Excess glucose not used by muscles is stored as fat, especially abdominal fat. While subcutaneous fat under the skin is relatively safe, excess abdominal fat is dangerous. It releases fatty acids and pro-inflammatory hormones that damage organs and blood vessels. Losing weight alone may not reverse metabolic disease if you remain metabolically unhealthy. The focus should be improving metabolic health through diet, exercise, sleep, and stress management. Fat is vital in maintaining metabolic health by acting as a buffer to store excess energy. When fat cells fill up, excess energy spills into the blood, liver, muscles, and around organs. Visceral fat around organs is harmful and linked to health issues like cancer and heart disease. Even a small amount of visceral fat can increase disease risk. Fat storage capacity varies from person to person based on genetics and lifestyle. Some people fill their fat cells more efficiently, putting them at higher risk of health issues. Staying active and maintaining muscle can help increase fat storage capacity. Excess fat causes insulin resistance, especially in muscles. Insulin resistance means cells become less responsive to insulin, the hormone that helps cells absorb glucose. The body produces more insulin to compensate, which causes high blood sugar and further promotes fat storage. If left unchecked, it can lead to type 2 diabetes. Insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia can cause fat gain and obesity. But obesity itself is just one symptom. Insulin also promotes atherosclerosis, cancer growth, and other issues. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD, and non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, NASH, are emerging health issues linked to excess fat and insulin resistance, just as type 2 diabetes occurred over 100 years ago. Type 2 diabetes and NAFLD are considered diseases of modern civilization that were rare in the past. In summary, excess energy consumed as calories lead to fat spillover and storage in places it does not belong. This initiates insulin resistance, high insulin, and a vicious cycle of health issues that promote even more fat gain. Maintaining a healthy weight, staying active, and controlling insulin levels are vital to metabolic health and avoiding these modern diseases. Diabetes was once a rare disease but has become increasingly common. Today, nearly half the U.S. population has prediabetes or diabetes. Diabetes is not a leading cause of death but contributes to other diseases like heart disease that cause many deaths. The death toll from diabetes and related metabolic problems is likely much higher than official statistics show. Diabetes has become an epidemic largely because human evolution has not kept up with changes in diet and environment. Human genes evolved for scarcity to store excess energy as fat. But now we have constant access to abundant calories and sugar. Fructose, in particular, is a crucial driver of metabolic problems and fat storage. Humans lost the ability to break down fructose efficiently due to a long-time mutation. This mutation helped ancestors survive periods of little food but now harms us by promoting fat gain, especially from high amounts of fructose. Fructose and glucose are metabolized differently. Fructose does not trigger the standard mechanisms regulating energy use and makes us feel whole. Instead, fructose causes a rapid drop in energy, making us feel hungry and storing more fat. Drinking liquid fructose like fruit juice is particularly problematic. High uric acid levels, partly caused by excess fructose, contribute to gout, high blood pressure, and metabolic problems. Reducing fructose and purines in the diet can help lower uric acid. In summary, human evolution and modern diets high in sugar, fructose, and calories have combined to create an epidemic of diabetes, obesity, and metabolic disease. Tackling this will require limiting excess sugar, fructose, and calories in the diet. Here's a summary. Based on his family history, the author recognizes that he is likely at high risk of dying from heart disease. His uncle Francis died of a sudden heart attack at age 46. Another uncle died of a heart attack at 42, and a third at 69. Given this family history, the author knows his risk is high. Heart disease is the leading cause of death worldwide. While we associate heart attacks with older age, many heart attacks happen to younger adults, even those in their 30s and 40s. The real problem is metabolic dysfunction and atherosclerosis, the gradual buildup of plaque in the arteries, which often develops over decades. Standard treatment focuses on managing risk factors like high blood pressure and high cholesterol but does little to address the underlying issues. Rather than just treating risk factors, we need to understand the root causes of heart disease, including insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, and oxidative stress. High insulin levels, often resulting from excess sugar and carbohydrate intake, are directly toxic to the arteries and heart. Inflammation, caused by excess body fat, smoking, poor diet, and lack of exercise, also damages arteries. Oxidative stress, an imbalance between free radicals and antioxidants, contributes to further damage. We need to focus on the causes, not just the symptoms, to prevent heart disease. This means eating an anti-inflammatory diet low in sugar and refined carbs, exercising regularly, reducing excess weight, quitting smoking, managing stress, and optimizing other lifestyle factors like sleep. Medications and supplements like statins, aspirin, and fish oil may provide some benefits, but lifestyle changes should be the priority. The main takeaway is that heart disease can often be prevented through lifestyle changes and does not have to be inevitable due to family history or age. But we must start early by developing good habits and reversing metabolic dysfunction before it's too late. Lifestyle-driven prevention, not open-heart surgery, should be the goal. Heart health and longevity start today with our choices, not when we reach our 60s or 70s. Our tickers are too precious to take for granted. The author's uncles died of heart attacks in their 40s, which is too young. The author's 85-year-old father has survived a heart attack and has a stent. Even though the author exercises, eats well, and has good health indicators, he is still at risk of heart disease due to his family history. Heart disease is a leading cause of death, especially for women, though it does not receive as much awareness as breast cancer. The author's Supreme Court scan in his 30s showed plaque buildup in his arteries, indicating heart disease. Though his numbers were not severe, any plaque at his age meant he was at high risk. The author embarked on a quest to understand heart disease better and how to prevent it. Though we know a lot about the condition, it remains the top killer, partly because we don't fully understand the drivers of risk and progression. Treatment often begins too late. The author argues we need to focus on prevention and begin treatment earlier. Successful prevention of heart disease could add many years of life, as seen in Sardinian men. The circulatory system is impressive but prone to atherosclerosis just through normal function. The system transports cholesterol, which can build up in arteries. Though cholesterol is often vilified, some forms are beneficial, while others drive disease. The key takeaway is that while we have made progress, heart disease remains underappreciated and poorly prevented. A better understanding of risks and earlier action could help reduce deaths from this disease. Cholesterol is essential for the body and required to produce important structures like cell membranes, hormones, and bile acids. About 20% of the body's cholesterol is made in the liver. Because cholesterol is fat-soluble, lipoproteins must transport it in the blood. HDL and LDL are two types of lipoproteins that carry cholesterol. They are mislabeled as good and bad cholesterol, but the lipoprotein particles, not the cholesterol itself, can lead to problems. LDL particles are more likely to get stuck in artery walls. Dietary cholesterol has little effect on blood cholesterol levels and heart disease risk for most people. The body produces most of the cholesterol in the blood. Eggs and other cholesterol-rich foods were wrongly blamed for heart disease. Half of the heart attacks and other major heart events happen to people under 65, and underlying atherosclerosis often starts much earlier, even in adolescence. Atherosclerosis is a slow-progressing disease, so prevention and management need to start early. Atherosclerosis can be considered a breaking of the artery wall. The endothelium lining the arteries acts as a barrier, but LDL and other particles can penetrate it. They usually go in and out, but LDL particles get stuck, especially once they oxidize. Oxidized LDL particles trigger the atherosclerotic process. Once LDL particles are oxidized and stuck in the artery wall, they begin an inflammatory response. White blood cells engulf the LDL particles, forming foam cells that accumulate into plaques. The plaques narrow and stiffen arteries, reducing blood flow. Plaques can also rupture, triggering clots that block blood flow and cause heart attacks and strokes. That covers the key points about cholesterol, lipoproteins, atherosclerosis development, and heart disease risk. Let me know if you want me to explain anything more. Toxic LDL particles can get stuck in the artery walls, causing damage and inflammation. This leads to a buildup of plaque. The more APOB particles, like LDL and VLDL, in the blood, the higher the risk of them getting stuck in arteries. The total cholesterol amount is less significant than the number of particles. Fatty streaks, the precursor to plaques, can start forming in teenagers. The process is slow, but atherosclerosis begins early. HDL particles can remove cholesterol from artery walls, but raising HDL cholesterol does not necessarily reduce risk. HDL's functionality, which is hard to measure, matters more. As plaques grow, they can obstruct blood flow, stenosis, and become unstable or rupture. Calcified plaques are more stable, but a calcium scan only shows part of the picture. Soft, non-calcified plaques are more dangerous. Plaque buildup is usually silent until a sudden event like a heart attack or stroke. The underlying issues have been developing for a long time. Significant and minor risk factors, like smoking, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol, contribute to endothelial damage, inflammation, and plaque growth over many years. The process starts early and builds up slowly until there are complications. That covers the essential highlights about how atherosclerosis and plaque develop, the role of lipoproteins like LDL and HDL, the difference between calcified and non-calcified plaques, and the fact that it's a lifelong process often remains silent until there are serious events. Let me know if you want me to explain anything in the summary. The author met his friend Anahad O'Connor in 2012. Though Anahad was very fit and healthy, the author persuaded him to get comprehensive lipoprotein testing. The tests showed Anahad had a high calcium score of 125, indicating significant atherosclerosis. Further testing revealed the culprit, high LPA levels, a dangerous lipoprotein particle. LPA is formed when LDL particles fuse with a protein called apolipoprotein A or ApoA. ApoA wraps around the LDL particle and scoops up oxidized lipids, which LPA then delivers to arteries. LPA is prone to getting stuck in the streets and promoting clots. Elevated LPA often first announces itself via sudden heart attack, even in otherwise healthy people. About 20 to 30% of people have high enough LPA to increase risk, especially those of African descent. There is no quick fix for high LPA. Diet and exercise do not reduce it. PCSK9 inhibitors can lower it by about 30%, but whether this reduces heart attack risk is unknown. The primary treatment is aggressive ApoB declining. The author and Anahad were both at high risk of heart disease due to lipoprotein abnormalities, though they seemed otherwise healthy. The key is detecting these risks early through comprehensive testing. The main messages are: standard cholesterol tests miss important lipoprotein risks like high LPA and ApoB. More comprehensive lipoprotein testing is necessary, especially for those with family histories of early heart disease. High LPA is a significant risk factor for premature atherosclerosis and heart attacks, even in fit and otherwise healthy people. About 20 to 30% of the population has levels high enough to increase risk. Lowering LPA directly is difficult, but the risk can be mitigated by aggressively reducing ApoB, inflammation, and other factors. Early detection and risk reduction are key. Heart disease risks often lurk silently until a catastrophic event. Even in apparently healthy people, comprehensive testing and risk factor reduction can help prevent this. Heart disease risk often runs in families but is not always obvious, as in the case of the author and his brother. They only discovered their risk through unrelated tests, showing the blind spots in how medicine typically screens for and understands heart disease risk. There are three major blind spots: an overly simplistic view of cholesterol and lipids. Doctors focus too much on LDL cholesterol and not enough on ApoB, which measures the total number of LDL and VLDL particles, and LPA, another risk factor. Lowering ApoB and LDL as much as possible is key to reducing risk. One must understand how early atherosclerosis starts and how long it takes to cause damage. Atherosclerosis begins in childhood but often does not cause events until decades later. Aggressive early prevention and treatment are needed. A failure to adequately reduce risk through lifestyle and medication. Doctors do not prescribe vital enough medication and lifestyle changes to reach the very low ApoB and LDL levels needed to reduce risk dramatically. Critical steps to reducing risk include: they lower ApoB and LDL as low as possible through diet, exercise, and medication. Aim for the levels of a baby, around 10 to 20 mg/dl. Most guidelines must go higher, for example, 70 mg/dl. They focus on metabolic health by controlling insulin, visceral fat, homocysteine, and other markers. Diet and exercise are essential. A ketogenic or low-carb diet may help some, but not all, people. They are using medication like statins, often in combination, to maximally lower ApoB and LDL when diet and exercise are not enough. Statins work by increasing liver uptake of ApoB and LDL. Recognizing that the process takes decades, so early prevention and delayed progression are essential, especially given most events happen after age 70. Aggressive risk reduction must start early to have the most significant impact. They consider other risks like smoking, blood pressure, triglycerides, and inflammation. They also directly contribute to atherosclerosis and events. Controlling them is essential. In summary, the medical system needs a more sophisticated understanding of the complex drivers of heart disease risk. Only by taking an aggressive approach to lower ApoB, LDL, and other factors as early as possible can we adequately prevent and delay dangerous atherosclerotic disease. A lifetime approach is needed. Atherosclerosis develops over decades and progresses with age, though at different rates in different people. Even though people may seem healthy, nearly all adults have some degree of atherosclerosis by middle age. However, some people need help to slow its progression. Doctors typically don't treat high cholesterol unless a patient's 10-year risk of a heart attack or stroke is over 5%. However, atherosclerosis develops over decades, so a 10-year horizon is too short. Earlier intervention, even in people's 30s and 40s, could help reduce lifetime risk. The author had a calcium scan at age 36, showing a small amount of plaque, but subsequent scans over 13 years showed no progression, suggesting his prevention efforts were successful. However, he acknowledges he still likely has some risk. Looking at 30-year rather than 10-year risk could show that treating high cholesterol earlier prevents many more cardiac events. Studies suggest that one life could be saved for every 7 people treated early, over 30 years. The key is lowering ApoB, the causal agent driving atherosclerosis. The best approach is to reduce it as much as possible, as early as possible, just like quitting smoking early is best. Several cholesterol-lowering drugs exist: statins, bempedoic acid, ezetimibe, PCSK9 inhibitors, fibrates, and fish oil. Combining statins with other drugs can maximize their effectiveness. The key points are: atherosclerosis develops over a lifetime, a 10-year horizon misses this long view. Earlier intervention to lower ApoB, the causal factor, can have significant benefits over decades, and several drug options for reducing ApoB. A surgeon and researcher, Steve Rosenberg, encountered a patient in 1968 who had survived metastatic stomach cancer for 12 years without treatment. This inspired Rosenberg's lifelong quest to harness the immune system to fight cancer. Despite billions of dollars spent on cancer research, cancer remains the second leading cause of death in the U.S. We have made some progress against certain cancers like leukemia. Still, most cancer death rates have not declined significantly in 50 years. Like heart disease, cancer is a disease of aging that becomes more common with age. However, it can strike at almost any age, especially middle age. Nearly 40% of new cancer cases in the U.S. are in people 45 to 64. Once cancer is established, we lack highly effective treatments. Surgery and radiation work for some local cancers, but we have maximized their benefit. Metastatic cancers eventually return, often resistant to treatment. Success is usually defined as 5-year survival. We rarely use the word cure. We struggle to detect most cancers early. We often find tumors only after symptoms appear, by which point the cancer may have spread. Removing the initial tumors does not help if the cancer has already metastasized elsewhere in the body. The strategy for dealing with cancer involves 1. Improving early detection, 2. Developing more effective treatments, especially for metastatic disease, and 3. A better understanding of cancer biology to find new targets and approaches. Progress on all 3 fronts is needed to make real headway against cancer. We still do not fully understand how cancer begins and spreads. Cancer cells differ from normal cells in 2 key ways: 1. They do not stop growing when they are supposed to, and 2. They can spread from their original location to other body parts, metastasis. Cancer is a highly complex disease. The Cancer Genome Atlas project found that each tumor contains many mutations which seem random. A few common mutations have been identified across some cancers, but no 2 tumors are generally alike, even within the same cancer type. This makes developing targeted treatments difficult. Most cancer deaths are caused by metastasis, not the original tumor. Metastatic cancer is challenging to treat because systemic treatment is needed once it spreads. Chemotherapy is currently the most common systemic treatment, but it kills normal and cancer cells, leading to side effects. More targeted therapies are needed. 2 hallmarks of cancer that could lead to new treatments are: 1. The insatiable hunger for nutrients that cancer cells exhibit due to their rapid growth, and 2. The ability of the immune system to detect cancer cells. New immunotherapies are showing promise for harnessing the immune system against cancer. Early detection of cancer is critical to successful treatment. We need better methods to detect metastasis and screen for cancer earlier. Liquid biopsies, which detect cancer DNA in the blood, show promise for early detection. A cure for cancer is unlikely to come from any single treatment. The most promising approaches are: 1. Improved prevention, 2. More targeted and effective treatments, especially immunotherapies, and 3. Earlier detection through enhanced screening. A multi-pronged attack on all 3 fronts will be needed to make progress against this disease. Cancer cells have an altered metabolism that causes them to consume vast amounts of glucose. They rely primarily on anaerobic glycolysis instead of aerobic respiration, even in the presence of oxygen. This is known as the Warburg effect. The Warburg effect produces lactate and other byproducts that provide building blocks for new cells. Although inefficient for producing energy, it fuels rapid cell proliferation. Obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, and high insulin levels are associated with increased cancer risk and progression. They promote an environment of chronic inflammation and provide excess glucose and insulin to fuel tumor growth. The peak pathway is overactivated in many cancers. It helps cells take up more glucose to support their growth. Insulin and IGF-1 activate this pathway. Metabolic interventions like calorie restriction, lowering insulin levels, and improving insulin sensitivity may help slow cancer progression and reduce cancer risk. They target the metabolic dysfunction that feeds cancer cells. While we can't avoid the genetic mutations that initiate cancer, we can address the metabolic factors that promote its growth. Controlling insulin resistance and blood sugar is considered a low-hanging fruit for cancer prevention and supporting other treatments. Metabolic therapies have been used to enhance the effects of other cancer treatments like immunotherapy. Targeting cancer metabolism may make tumors more sensitive to these approaches. So, in summary, cancer metabolism refers to the altered way cancer cells produce energy and generate materials to fuel their proliferation. Obesity, diabetes, and hyperinsulinemia create conditions that feed this dysfunctional metabolism. Improving metabolic health may help prevent and control some cancers by depriving them of excess glucose and insulin. Metabolic interventions could also increase the effectiveness of other cancer therapies. New cancer treatments are focused on targeting a cancer cell's metabolic weaknesses and harnessing the immune system. Metabolism targeting drugs like PEAK inhibitors aim to reduce a cancer cell's energy supply by inhibiting the PEAK pathway. Still, they often fail or cause side effects like high blood sugar. Combining PEAK inhibitors with a ketogenic diet that reduces insulin may enhance their products. Fasting or fast-mimicking diets during chemotherapy can also make cancer cells more vulnerable while protecting normal cells. Immunotherapies aim to stimulate a patient's immune system to attack cancer cells. Although cancer cells are technically self-cells, immunotherapies are trying to teach the immune system to recognize them as foreign. Pioneer William Coley first noticed that infections seemed to cure some cancers and tried injecting patients with bacteria to provoke an immune response, but his approach was rejected. However, modern immunotherapies like checkpoint inhibitors, CAR T-cell therapy, and tumor-infiltrating lymphocyte therapy are promising results. Some produce long-term remissions and cures for certain cancers like melanoma and leukemia. Combining multiple treatments, like metabolism-targeting drugs and immunotherapies, is likely to be most effective since it attacks cancer's numerous weaknesses and reduces the chances of resistance. Although still limited, these new approaches suggest cancer may be defeated through precision medicine rather than a single silver bullet. Here's a summary. Spontaneous cancer remission and the immune system's ability to fight cancer have long intrigued scientists, including Steve Rosenberg. Rosenberg spent years unsuccessfully trying different approaches to activate the immune system against cancer. He eventually successfully used high-dose interleukin-2, IL-2, to induce remission in a small percentage of melanoma and kidney cancer patients. Rosenberg then turned to engineering patients' T cells to target their tumors. After many attempts, he adapted a technique to genetically modify patients' T cells to give them receptors targeted to their tumors, chimeric antigen receptor T cells or CAR-T. In 2010, Rosenberg first reported success using CAR-T to induce remission in a lymphoma patient. CAR-T treatments were eventually approved in 2017, but they only work for certain cancers like B-cell lymphomas that express the CD19 target. Separately, James Allison discovered that blocking checkpoint proteins like CTLA-4 could help the immune system detect cancer cells. This led to drugs like ipilimumab and pembrolizumab, which have been used to treat some cancers, including helping induce remission in former President Jimmy Carter's metastatic melanoma. Immunotherapies have helped some patients, like the author's friend Michael, beat cancers that would have otherwise been fatal. However, immunotherapies still only benefit a small percentage of potential patients. Researchers are exploring ways to expand their benefits, such as by combining immunotherapies with other treatments. In summary, after many years of work, researchers have developed ways to activate the immune system against some cancers, leading to new treatment options for certain patients. But more progress is still needed to make immunotherapies effective for a broader range of cancers. Summary: cancer cells that have spread throughout the body, metastatic cancer, are challenging to treat because there are too many cells with too many mutations for most treatments to overcome. Early cancer detection: when a low tumor burden, offers the best hope for successful treatment and long-term survival. No single diagnostic test is 100% accurate, so we need to use multiple tests and consider patients' risk profiles. Mammography, PSA tests, and colonoscopies are imperfect, so we need to look at other factors and repeat tests to improve accuracy. Colorectal cancer is one of the easiest cancers to detect early with colonoscopies. The author recommends colonoscopies before age 50 for average-risk patients and repeats them every 2 to 3 years. Other cancers like skin, cervical, and lung cancer can also often be detected early with screening. MRI and CT scans can detect internal cancers but have high sensitivity and low specificity, leading to false positives. Liquid biopsies that detect cancer biomarkers in the blood are a promising new tool for screening and monitoring cancer. They can detect recurrences earlier than imaging alone. The key message is that no single test is perfect, so the best approach is to use multiple modalities of screening tailored to patients' risks and needs. Early, frequent screening of certain cancers like colorectal cancer can save lives. New tools like liquid biopsies also show promise for improving screening and management. Max and his colleagues developed a blood test to detect circulating tumor DNA shed by cancer cells. This liquid biopsy allows for early cancer detection and insight into the biology of the cancer. Liquid biopsies detect cell-free DNA in the blood by looking for known genetic signatures of a patient's tumor or other markers like methylation patterns. Tests like Gallery have high specificity but lower sensitivity, especially for early-stage cancers. Liquid biopsies can detect cancers earlier than imaging tests alone and provide information about the tumor's aggressiveness based on how much cell-free DNA is shed. The more DNA is cleared, the more aggressive the cancer. Early cancer detection is critical because more minor, less mutated tumors are easier to treat. Liquid biopsies could enable earlier intervention and better outcomes. Screening costs must be weighed against the costs of missing or detecting cancer late. Screening leads to financial costs, emotional costs from false positives, and risks like complications from biopsies. Progress against cancer has been slow, but new tools like liquid biopsies and immunotherapies provide hope. With better screening and treatments, cancer could become a manageable chronic disease. The key ideas are that liquid biopsies enable earlier cancer detection, providing critical information to guide treatment and potentially transform cancer into a manageable disease. Early detection is vital, but screening has costs and trade-offs that must be considered. Overall, continued scientific progress provides hope in the fight against cancer. Here's a summary. Stephanie, a 40-year-old patient, found out she has 2 copies of the AP4 gene variant, which increases her risk of Alzheimer's disease up to 12 times. Although devastating news, she has time on her side since Alzheimer's usually does not progress until age 65, even for E4/E4 carriers. The doctor hopes new treatments will emerge in the next 25 years to help prevent or delay Alzheimer's for Stephanie. Alzheimer's disease has been recognized for centuries but was first named in the early 1900s by Dr. Alois Alzheimer. It is a progressive neurological disorder that destroys memory and thinking skills. The hallmarks of Alzheimer's are amyloid plaques and tau tangles in the brain that lead to loss of connections between neurons. The causes are still not fully understood, but age is the most significant risk factor. Genetic factors like AP4 increase risk, but genes are not destiny. Many E4 carriers do not get Alzheimer's, and many non-carriers do. Lifestyle and environmental factors likely also contribute significantly. The diagnosis is made based on symptoms, cognitive tests, brain scans, and ruling out other causes. There is no cure, but some medications and lifestyle interventions may help slow the progression. Much research is focused on prevention and developing better treatments. Other neurodegenerative diseases include Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's disease, ALS, and Huntington's. They may exist on a continuum so that some prevention strategies could benefit multiple conditions. Alois Alzheimer was a German psychiatrist who, in 1906, noticed strange plaques and tangles in the brain of a patient named Auguste Attia during an autopsy. These abnormalities were later termed Alzheimer's disease. However, Alzheimer's discovery was largely forgotten for decades. In the 1960s, scientists revisited Alzheimer's findings and concluded that senile dementia was an actual disease, not just aging. They found plaques and tangles like Alzheimer's described in many dementia patients. The plaques contained amyloid beta, which became the leading theory of Alzheimer's cause. The amyloid hypothesis posits that the accumulation of amyloid beta in the brain causes Alzheimer's disease. Many drug trials have targeted amyloid beta but failed to help patients. Some recent failures have led scientists to question whether amyloid causes Alzheimer's in all cases. Autopsy and imaging studies show that many people have amyloid plaques but no dementia, while others have dementia but little amyloid. This suggests that amyloid may not always lead to symptoms or be needed. Alzheimer's original patient, Auguste Tour, showed symptoms more typical of early-onset Alzheimer's, which affects people younger than 65. In contrast, the most common Alzheimer's disease affects people over 65. This raises the possibility that they are distinct diseases. Tour was found to have a genetic mutation that produces excess amyloid, unlike most Alzheimer's patients. This further suggests the diseases Alzheimer first observed and today's Alzheimer's may differ biologically. In summary, while amyloid beta is still thought to play some role, its exact contribution to Alzheimer's disease remains uncertain. Alzheimer's original discovery and today's most common dementia may even be distinct conditions, calling into question long-held assumptions. The biology of Alzheimer's disease appears to be complex and still not fully understood. Auguste Tour, the first patient diagnosed with Alzheimer's, likely had an early-onset genetic form. Her case may have led researchers to wrongly assume all Alzheimer's cases progress similarly. Different neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Lewy body dementia, and Parkinson's disease are linked to the buildup of other proteins in the brain, amyloid and tau for Alzheimer's, alpha-synuclein for Lewy body dementia, and Parkinson's. The API4 gene variant increases the risk of developing these diseases. Patients with a high genetic risk of Alzheimer's, like Stephanie, face difficult decisions without effective treatments. However, research shows neurodegenerative disease may be preventable through lifestyle interventions. Stephanie has 2 copies of the API4 allele, putting her at high risk. Her case shows the importance of starting prevention early. While her risk factors of being female, Caucasian, and having API4 are out of her control, her doctors focus on addressing modifiable risks. Women face a higher risk of Alzheimer's, including menopause, hormone levels, reproductive history, and a greater tendency to accumulate tau proteins. However, men face a higher risk of Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. In general, neurodegenerative diseases progress more quickly in women. Dementia has a long development with subtle early signs, making it difficult to determine precise beginnings. Genetic risks provide some insight but do not fully explain disease development. A preventive approach is critical. The passage discusses the challenges of addressing Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative conditions, especially for high-risk patients. It highlights the importance of early prevention and lifestyle interventions based on understanding genetic and other risk factors. Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases often go undetected for years until symptoms become noticeable. Mild cognitive impairment, MCI, is an early stage of Alzheimer's, where symptoms go beyond occasional lapses in memory to more significant problems like forgetting words or losing objects. An even earlier stage, called preclinical Alzheimer's, can last for years before symptoms appear. Estimates show over 46 million Americans are in this stage. Other diseases like Parkinson's or Lewy body dementia also progress for years before symptoms are noticed. Subtle signs like movement, cognition, or mood changes may seem unimportant but can indicate disease. Comprehensive cognitive testing is critical for diagnosis. Tests assess memory, executive function, processing speed, and verbal skills. They can distinguish normal aging from disease and determine what brain areas are affected. Changes in gait, facial expressions, and visual tracking may also indicate disease, even if not apparent to most people. Diagnosis is challenging because the brain can compensate for damage, masking early signs of disease. Multiple neural networks allow for redundancy, so functions continue even as some networks fail. Cognitive and movement reserve, built over a lifetime, help resist decline from Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, respectively. Complex mental and physical activities are most helpful for building funds. Stephanie, the case study, had good cognitive reserve due to her education and mental activities. This gave hope for preventing Alzheimer's, even with her genetic risk. A prevention plan was needed, focused on changes in the brain and how to limit the damage. Along with amyloid plaques, problems with blood flow and calcified blood vessels are hallmarks of Alzheimer's brain. Vascular damage was noted in early research defining Alzheimer's. Jacques de la Torre, a neurologist, proposed the vascular hypothesis of Alzheimer's disease in the 1990s. He theorized that reduced blood flow to the brain, which naturally occurs with aging, causes an energy crisis in neurons that leads to neurodegeneration and, ultimately, the symptoms of Alzheimer's. The brain requires a steady supply of oxygen and glucose to function. Even minor disruptions can cause damage. The brain prioritizes its energy supply but ultimately depends on adequate blood flow and nutrition. There is evidence to support the vascular hypothesis. Alzheimer's is more likely after strokes, which reduce blood flow. Cardiovascular disease and factors that reduce blood flow also increase Alzheimer's risk. Brain imaging shows decreased blood flow and glucose metabolism in Alzheimer's patients, even before symptoms appear. Reduced glucose metabolism in the brain may also play a role in Alzheimer's. Insulin resistance and diabetes increase Alzheimer's risk and minimize brain glucose uptake. Insulin seems essential for memory, and insulin given directly to the brain improves memory. Reduced brain glucose, like reduced blood flow, may lead to neurodegeneration. The APE4 gene variant accelerates Alzheimer's risk factors like reduced blood flow and glucose metabolism. AP helps transport cholesterol and glucose in the brain, but the E4 variant could be more efficient. It may also damage the blood-brain barrier. Though once beneficial for survival, the E4 variant promotes inflammation and Alzheimer's risk, especially in women. In summary, reduced vascular and metabolic support for the brain, often linked to aging and exacerbated by APE4, may initiate a cascade of damage that ultimately leads to Alzheimer's disease. Amyloid plaques and tangles may be consequences rather than the primary cause. Treatments targeting blood flow, glucose metabolism, insulin signaling, and inflammation may help prevent or slow Alzheimer's disease. Inflammation is beneficial in some contexts but harmful in others. Inflammation is linked to atherosclerosis, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia. People with Alzheimer's often have high inflammatory markers like TNF-alpha and IL-6. The APE4 variant is associated with higher inflammation and worsening of Alzheimer's risk factors. The E4 variant may disrupt glucose regulation and insulin signaling in the brain. However, the effects of APE4 are highly variable. Factors like sex, ethnicity, lifestyle, and other genes influence how much E4 impacts Alzheimer's risk and disease course. For example, the CLOTO gene may offset the adverse effects of E4. For high-risk patients like Stephanie, the key is addressing metabolic issues they are improving glucose regulation, reducing inflammation, and limiting oxidative stress. Strategies include the Mediterranean diet, DHA supplementation, and possibly ketogenic diets. Exercising regularly helps with glucose regulation, vascular health, stress, and cortisol levels. Endurance and strength training are essential. I am getting adequate high-quality sleep. Lack of sleep exacerbates Alzheimer's risk factors and impairs melatonin release. I was managing other risks like hearing loss. Hearing loss may contribute to cognitive decline by reducing mental stimulation and social connection. The good news is we know more about preventing Alzheimer's than cancer. With comprehensive lifestyle changes and close monitoring, the risk of Alzheimer's can be significantly reduced even in high-risk individuals. Diseases of civilization like Alzheimer's, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer have increased with modernization and urbanization. While modern life has extended lifespans, it has also created conditions that can limit longevity. Our environment has changed dramatically in the last few centuries, while our genes have not. This mismatch between our genes and environment can be hazardous to our health. We must employ cunning tactics to adapt and thrive. To determine the right tactics, we must understand the biological mechanisms predisposing us to disease and how diseases progress. The author aims to provide this understanding. In Medicine 3.0, there are 5 tactical domains to alter health. Exercise, the most potent domain for impacting lifespan and health span, includes aerobic efficiency, maximum aerobic output, strength, and stability. Nutrition or nutritional biochemistry, sleep, emotional health, managing and improving emotional health, environment, controlling environmental exposures like light, temperature, and toxins. Also, social connections and intellectual stimulation. Employing tactics in these 5 domains can help reduce disease risk, extend life, and improve life quality in our later years or bonus decades. The key is determining and applying the correct principles for your unique situation. The author discusses 5 domains that affect health and longevity: exercise, nutrition, sleep, emotional health, and exogenous molecules like drugs and supplements. The book focuses on the first 4 domains, not exogenous molecules. The author uses the example of car accidents to illustrate developing effective tactics. The apparent tactics for reducing fatal car accidents are wearing seatbelts, not texting while driving, not drinking and driving, and obeying the speed limit. However, data shows that most fatal accidents happen at intersections, often due to cars hitting from the left. An effective tactic is carefully looking left, right, then left again before entering a meeting. Small, targeted tactics like this can have a significant impact. The two most complex tactical domains for health and longevity are nutrition and exercise. The author evaluates patients based on whether they are overnourished or undernourished, undermuscled or adequately muscled, and metabolically healthy or unhealthy. Tactics must be coordinated across domains. For example, reducing calories for an overnourished patient must still provide enough protein for muscle gain. The book provides a framework for managing movement, nutrition, sleep, and emotional health rather than a rigid prescription. The specifics of exercise, diet, and lifestyle depend on individual needs and situations. The goal is to empower patients to optimize their health through habit changes and hard work. The author's recommendations change based on new science and patient needs. The only goal is to live longer and better. The next chapter focuses on exercise, which the author calls the most powerful longevity drug. Minor changes to activity level and intensity can significantly impact health and longevity. The minimum effective dose of exercise is more than typical guidelines but less than extremes like marathoning. The key is balancing stress and rest. Here's a summary. Griffin pinged you, asking whether he should focus on cardio or strength training for exercise. You ended up writing him an extended, detailed response covering both. You saw his question as reflecting confusion over contradictory advice and a desire for guidance. You yourself had found nutrition advice conflicting and needing clarification. You answered that he should do both cardio and strength training. Exercise has enormous benefits for health and longevity. Even a little practice is better than none, and the benefits increase dramatically. Doctors don't usually give specific exercise guidance, just generic advice to move more. But exercise needs to be explicitly prescribed to achieve goals efficiently and safely. Aerobic or cardiorespiratory fitness, measured by VO2 max, is the most vital marker of longevity. It measures how efficiently your body delivers oxygen to muscles. The higher the VO2 max, the lower the mortality rate. Elite athletes can have a VO2 max of 60 to 70, average people in their 40s around 40, and unfit people in their 30s or 40s around 28. VO2 max shows how much oxygen your body can consume to produce energy. The more fit you are, the more oxygen you can use and the faster and longer you can exercise. VO2 max applies not just to athletes but to longevity and health. The study showing VO2 max and lower mortality followed over 120,000 people. The fittest had much lower mortality. Smokers, for comparison, have 40% higher mortality. You recommend cardio and strength training for optimal health and longevity. Exercise has profound benefits, and more is better, though any amount is better than none. Specific guidance is needed to achieve goals efficiently and safely. And aerobic fitness, as measured by VO2 max, is critical to longevity. Poor cardiorespiratory fitness and low muscle strength are associated with a higher mortality risk, especially in older adults. Someone with below-average cardiorespiratory fitness has double the risk of death compared to someone in the top 25% of fitness for their age and sex. Someone in the bottom 25% of fitness has nearly 4 times the risk. Even improving from the bottom 25% to below average cuts the risk of death in half. The fitter a person, the lower their mortality risk, with no observed upper limit of benefit. Muscle strength may be as strongly correlated with longevity as cardiorespiratory fitness. Low muscle mass and strength are associated with a 40 to 50% higher risk of death in older adults. Low muscle strength alone doubles the risk. The combination of low muscle mass, quiet strength, and metabolic syndrome triples the risk of death. Exercise acts as a powerful drug by prompting the body to produce chemicals that strengthen the immune system, stimulate muscle and bone growth, improve brain health and function, and maintain healthy circulation. While exercise extends lifespan, it may be even more beneficial for preserving health span by maintaining physical capacity and quality of life. Muscle loss and declining activity accelerate after age 65 to 75, putting seniors at high risk. Maintaining higher activity and muscle mass helps slow this decline. Seniors with the least muscle mass are at the highest risk of death from any cause. Maintaining strength and mobility into old age is key for longevity and continued independence. In summary, cardiorespiratory fitness and muscle strength are two of the most significant markers of health and longevity. Exercise is the most effective way to improve both, acting as a natural medicine for aging with benefits that surpass most pharmaceutical drugs. Maintaining an active lifestyle and exercise regimen, especially in later years, is crucial for a long and healthy life. The researchers looked at older adults' appendicular lean mass index, a measure of muscle mass relative to height in the arms and legs. Over 12 years, 50% of those with the lowest muscle mass died, compared to only 20% of those with the highest muscle mass. While causation can't be proven, This suggests muscle mass is associated with longer life. The author believes muscle mass is linked to both lifespan and health span. Muscle mass helps maintain bone health and mobility and reduces the risk of falls, a leading cause of death and disability in the elderly. Exercise, especially strength training, can help maintain muscle mass and physical function, even into old age. However, the medical system focuses little on activity and muscle health. To illustrate the importance of maintaining physical ability, the author describes Sophie, an older woman who remained active playing golf and gardening but declined rapidly after injuring herself and becoming inactive. The author realized extreme or single-minded exercise pursuits may not adequately prepare one for aging. A centenarian decathlon approach, being broadly and sufficiently fit in many areas, is needed. The centenarian decathlon is a framework for aspiring to physical vitality into old age. It represents developing fitness in 10 key areas: flexibility, balance, strength, endurance, coordination, stamina, skill, speed, power, and range of motion. While not focused on extreme performance in any area, these provide a basis for independence and quality of life as one ages. By taking a decathlete approach, we can train in a well-rounded way for successful aging. In summary, the key points are: muscle mass is strongly associated with healthy aging and longevity. Exercise, especially strength training, helps maintain muscle mass and physical ability into old age. The medical system undervalues exercise and muscle health. A broad, well-rounded fitness approach is needed for aging well. The centenarian decathlon framework represents 10 critical fitness areas to aspire to for successful aging. A decathlete approach to being broadly fit will help maintain independence and quality of life. Like an athlete, staying active and avoiding decline requires ongoing effort and training. But extreme or single-minded pursuits may not adequately prepare one for aging. A balanced approach is best. Here's a summary. The key to optimizing your exercise for longevity is to focus on 3 dimensions: aerobic endurance and efficiency, cardio. This refers to a range of intensities, from easy walks to all-out sprints. For longevity, focus on the following: Zone 2 or long, steady endurance work like jogging, cycling, or swimming. This improves your aerobic capacity and endurance. High-intensity interval training, HIIT, which involves short bursts of maximal effort. This boosts your VO2 max and endurance. Strength, this means resistance training to build muscle and bone strength. Focus on compound, multi-joint lifts like squats, deadlifts, bench presses, rows, and pull-ups. These exercises work for most muscle groups. Higher intensity, lower rep training, for example, 3 sets of 5 to 8 reps. This maximizes strength gains, increasing weight and difficulty over time as your strength improves. Stability, this refers to balance, flexibility, and mobility. Focus on balance exercises like single leg stands, lunges, and step-ups. Flexibility training through stretching, yoga, or tai chi. Mobility work to maintain the range of motion in your joints. To optimize your longevity, incorporate all 3 dimensions in your exercise routine, including 3 to 4 days a week of Zone 2 cardio for 30 to 60 minutes, 2 days a week of heat, for example, sprint intervals, 2 to 3 days a week of strength training, focusing on compound lifts, balance, flexibility, and mobility work 2 to 3 times a week. The key is to start now, build up gradually, and make exercise a lifelong habit. With the right combination of cardio, strength, and stability work, you'll be well on your way to becoming a kick-ass centenarian. Aerobic exercise, specifically training in Zone 2, improves our ability to utilize glucose and fat as fuels for energy. This is important for metabolism and health. Zone 2 refers to exercise intensity that strains conversation but still allows it. It provides aerobic benefits without building up lactate. Healthy mitochondria, the energy producers in our cells, are essential for Zone 2 training. Zone 2 exercise helps build mitochondrial health and metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch between using glucose or fat for fuel. A study compared pro cyclists, moderately active people, and sedentary people with metabolic syndrome. The pro cyclists could produce lots of power using mostly fat. The inactive group could only use glucose, showing their inflexibility. Zone 2 training could help the sedentary group. Zone 2 training is crucial for health and fitness. For athletes, it builds endurance. For others, it improves mitochondrial health and prevents disease. Zone 2 makes up 80% of pro cyclists training. In Zone 2, we primarily use slow-twitch muscle fibers with lots of mitochondria. We can sustain the effort without building up lactate. If we go harder, We start using fast-twitch fibers, and lactate rises. Zone 2 means matching lactate production and clearance. For the author, lactate levels between 1.7 to 2.0 millimoles indicate the Zone 2 threshold. He monitors lactate to ensure the correct location to intensity. The goal is steady lactate, not rising levels. Summary: Zone 2 aerobic exercise is essential for health, fitness, and metabolism. Improving mitochondrial function and metabolic flexibility helps prevent disease and enhances performance. Careful monitoring of intensity and using lactate levels help achieve the benefits of Zone 2 training. Zone 2 training involves keeping lactate levels steady at a range that allows for sustainable effort. For most people, this corresponds to 70 to 85% of the maximum heart rate or a group of exertions where you can speak in complete sentences but prefer not to hold an entire conversation. Zone 2 output and the lactate threshold are highly variable depending on fitness. Untrained individuals may only be able to sustain 100 watts in Zone 2, while professional athletes can do 300 watts or more. When adjusted for body weight, the difference is even more significant. Zone 2 training improves mitochondrial health, increases glucose uptake, and enhances metabolic flexibility. It helps manage diabetes by enabling glucose uptake independent of insulin. Even 2 to 3 hours a week of Zone 2 training provides benefits, while 4 45-minute sessions are a reasonable minimum for most people. Measuring watts per kilogram over time tracks improvement. VO2 max training involves higher intensity at maximum oxygen consumption. It further improves many of the same parameters as Zone 2 activity but mainly boosts VO2 max, which is strongly correlated with longevity. VO2 max testing and targeted training are recommended, even for non-athletes. Zone 2 training provides an aerobic base and foundation for exercise, while VO2 max pushes to the upper limits of aerobic capacity. Combining the two offers comprehensive endurance and metabolic benefits. The main points are: the VO2 max test measures your maximum oxygen consumption during intense exercise. It is an unpleasant test that involves exercising on a bike or treadmill at increasing intensity while wearing an oxygen mask. Your VO2 max level declines significantly with age, limiting your physical capability and ability to do activities. The rate of decline accelerates after age 50. The author aims for patients to achieve an elite VO2 max level for their age to maintain function, which often means achieving the story of someone 20 years younger. For example, a 50-year-old woman would need a VO2 max of 45 to 49, the level of a 30-year-old, to stay fit enough to hike into her 80s. Improving your VO2 max, even modestly, can reduce health risks and increase your functional age. For example, improving from 30 to 35 milliliters/kg per minute in your 60s is equivalent to decreasing your age by 12 years. Achieving an elite level buys you a phase shift to a functionally younger generation. VO2 max can be improved at any age through training. A 101-year-old man improved his VO2 max from 31 to 35 milliliters/kg per minute, achieving the fitness of an average man in his 80s. The key is VO2 max interval training 2x a week, like 4 minutes of strenuous exercise followed by 4 minutes of recovery, repeated 4 to 6 times. VO2 max training should supplement Zone 2 cardio exercise. Short periods of intense training can have significant benefits without requiring as much time as Zone 2 training. But sufficient warm-up, cool down, and recovery between intervals is essential. The main takeaway is that VO2 max is crucial for maintaining physical capability and independence as you age. Still, it can be improved and offset through focused high-intensity interval training, even for older people. Achieving higher levels of fitness buys you additional good years of active living. Though the VO2 max test is unpleasant, understanding and improving your score is worth the discomfort. Consistency and the long view are essential. Aerobic exercise provides endurance and stamina. Doing high-intensity interval or cross-country skiing once a week can boost performance in other areas of life. It allows one to go from low intensity for a long time to high intensity when needed, like sprinting to catch a flight. Muscle mass and strength decline with age, starting in one's 30s. An 80-year-old may have 40% less muscle than in their 20s. Muscle strength declines even faster. This loss of fast-twitch muscle fibers leads to losing power and speed. Resistance training is critical to counteracting this. Inactivity leads to rapid loss of muscle and strength. Even short inactivity from illness or injury can cause significant declines, especially in the elderly. Regaining muscle after a significant loss is very difficult. Bone density also steadily declines with age, especially in women after menopause without hormone replacement therapy. Low bone density leads to a higher risk of fractures, with a high mortality rate in older people. Tracking and maintaining bone density is as important as muscle mass. 4 strategies are used to maintain bone density: optimal nutrition, especially protein and calories, weight-bearing exercise, hormone replacement therapy, and bone density drugs. The first 2 strategies are ideal, but the latter 2 may be needed. Strength training is like saving for retirement. Building muscle and bone density over decades provides reserves to draw on in old age and prevent injury and frailty. It should start early and be consistent, not left until late in life when declines have already happened. In summary, aerobic fitness, muscle mass, strength, and bone density all decline naturally with age, but this can and should be counteracted with regular exercise and other strategies to build a reserve that will sustain health and activity into old age. Acting preventatively by starting early is critical. Developing strength early on will benefit you greatly as you age. The author focuses on functional strength that helps with daily activities rather than muscle size or powerlifting numbers. Carrying heavy objects is an essential measure of strength with evolutionary roots. The author incorporates rucking and hiking with a weighted pack into his routine. Rucking provides cardiovascular and strength benefits while reintroducing discomfort primarily engineered out of modern life. The author focuses on 4 foundations of strength: grip strength. Stronger grip is linked to lower mortality risk and indicates overall strength and balance. Grip strength has declined in recent generations. Concentric and eccentric loading, lifting and lowering weights with control. Eccentric strength is significant for aging well. They are pulling movements, pull-ups, rows, etc. require grip and back strength. Hip hinging movements, deadlifts, squats, step-ups. Strengthen legs, glutes, and lower back. Essential for getting up from chairs and avoiding falls. Grip strength is significant as we age and interact with the world. Farmers' carries, walking with weights in hand, and dead hangs can help build grip strength. Start light and build up slowly. Controlling the eccentric, or lowering, phase of exercises is essential but often overlooked. Step downs, slowly falling yourself from a box, require eccentric quad strength that diminishes with age. In summary, the author recommends building foundational strength through functional movements focused on the ability to carry, pull, hip hinge, and control lifting and lowering weights. Early development of these strengths will support mobility, independence, and longevity over the long run. It is essential to stay physically active as we age, but many people stop exercising due to injuries. Injuries are common and can have long-lasting effects. Back pain, in particular, is a huge problem that leads to disability and high costs. The author experienced a severe back injury in his 20s that made it difficult for him to function for months. His experience showed how crucial physical ability is for well-being. The first rule of fitness should be no harm. We must avoid pushing ourselves too hard in workouts and resorting to unsafe movement patterns. Instead, we should focus on cultivating safe, ideal movement patterns that allow our bodies to function correctly and reduce injury risk. This is stability. Stability involves more than just core strength. It requires integrating strength, mobility, balance, and body awareness. Relearning proper movement patterns is challenging but necessary to build stability. Most people have developed unsafe compensatory patterns from years of repetitive stress and injury. Stability allows us to handle higher intensities and heavier loads safely. We start by relearning basic patterns with body weight, then progressively add weight and challenge. The videos show proper techniques for fundamental movements like the hip hinge, step up, and split stance Romanian deadlift. Doing these with good form is crucial to building stability. The key points are: focus on stability and proper movement patterns. Start relearning with basic bodyweight exercises. Build up progressively. Use resources like videos to learn proper techniques. Stability is the foundation for lifelong fitness and health. The author argues that stability is essential for fitness and movement, especially as we age. Resilience refers to the ability to transmit force through the body safely. Injuries are likely to occur without strength as the excess pressure travels through the path of least resistance in the body, often joints and the spine. The author uses an analogy of driving a potent streetcar versus a lighter, track-ready race car to illustrate the concept of stability. While the streetcar has more power, the race car can achieve better lap times because it has a tighter chassis and stickier tires that allow it to handle higher speeds through turns safely. The streetcar, lacking this stability, would spin out of control at high speeds. Similarly, a weightlifter with huge muscles but poor stability is more prone to injury. At the same time, a smaller weightlifter with good stability can lift heavy weights safely and do other activities. Stability allows us to create maximum force with minimum risk of injury. It lets athletes perform amazing feats but enables ordinary people to continue regular activities as they age without falling or suffering chronic injuries. On the other hand, lack of stability leads to injuries as the excess force dissipates in unwanted ways, often through joints in the spine. The author discovered his lack of stability after a trainer analyzed his squat form. His awkward, off-balance movement likely contributed to prior back injuries. Remedying the situation required 9 months of retraining his body and mind. The training was based on dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, DNS, replicating the developmental stages babies go through when learning to move. DNS helps regain natural, healthy movement patterns most adults lose over time. In summary, the author argues for the importance of stability, the ability to safely generate and control force, for continued fitness, movement, and injury prevention, especially as we age. Lack of peace leads to injury, while training to improve stability and redevelop natural movement patterns can help remedy existing problems and build a foundation for lifelong strength and mobility. Most adults cannot squat appropriately due to a lack of stability and hip mobility. Our sedentary lifestyles have caused us to lose the ability to move in specific ways. DNS, or dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, helps retrain the body and brain to move in optimal patterns we learned as children. It focuses on stability before strength. Breathing is foundational to stability and movement. How we breathe reflects how we move and stabilize our bodies. There are 3 main breathing/movement types. Mr. Stay Puffed, hyperinflated, breathes into the upper chest, the spine extends, and the pelvis tilts forward. Prone to lower back pain. He needs to focus on exhaling. Sad Guy, compressed, everything scrunched down. The shoulders roll forward, the midback is overly flexed. He needs to focus on inhaling through the nose. Yogini, uncontrolled, extreme flexibility but little control. Prone to injuries. Tries to stabilize with neck and jaw, he needs to build muscle control. The author was a Mr. Stay Puft type. His ribs would flare up and out on inhale, pulling his center of mass forward and curving his spine. His butt would stick out. He needed to focus on exhaling to correct this. Breath training helps correct rib position, spine shape, neck extension, and foot position, all impacting how we interact with and stabilize ourselves. Beth Lewis, a physical therapist, emphasizes the importance of breath for efficient and coordinated movement. She starts by having patients lie on their backs and inhale as quietly as possible to strengthen the diaphragm. The ideal inhale expands the ribcage in all directions while the belly expands. The exhale is forceful through pursed lips. The abdomen is considered a cylinder in dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, DNS. When inhaling, the cylinder is inflated in all directions. Intra-abdominal pressure is created, which stabilizes the spine. A person's breathing style indicates their stability strategy and how they should exercise. Stay Puffed people need grounding and weights in front of the body. Sad guys and gals need cross-body rotation. Yoginis need closed chain exercises and machines. The feet are the foundation for movement and connect us to the ground. Many people have weak and unaware feet from wearing shoes. Beth does toe yoga to strengthen their toes and increase foot control. The big toe is significant for walking, running, and lowering. Weak toes can cause ankle, knee, hip, and back problems. In yoga, focus on pressing the 4 corners of the feet into the ground. Try lifting and dropping individual toes to increase control and connection with the feet. 2 common foot positions are pronation, arches collapse inwards, and supination, feet roll outwards. Pronation is like underinflated tires, reducing force transfer. Supination is like overinflated tires, transmitting shock to joints. Both increase injury risk. Grounding your feet is essential for stability, balance, and mobility. Spreading weight evenly across feet allows for efficient movement. Balancing on one leg is a good stability test and correlates with longevity. The spine has 3 parts: lumbar, lower back, thoracic, midback, and cervical, neck. Modern lifestyles put a lot of stress on the spine. It's essential to develop an awareness of spinal extension and flexion through slow and controlled movements like cat/cow poses. This helps distribute force and load properly through the spine. The shoulder joint sacrificed stability for mobility and range of motion during human evolution. The scapulae, shoulder blades, are complex and mobile. Controlling scapular movement through exercises like scapular cars helps build neuromuscular control and stability. Grip strength and hand scale are essential for transmitting and modulating force. Weak grip in hands can lead to injury up the kinetic chain at the elbows, shoulders, and spine. Deliberately training grip and hand strength is essential. Cues like initiating curls with the wrists straight rather than bent back help build awareness of hand and finger involvement. Simple drills and exercises focused on feet, spine, shoulders, and hands represent essential elements of stability training. Mastering these basics through developing proprioception and narrowing the gap between perceived and actual movement takes time and practice. Filming workouts helps provide feedback to improve awareness and technique. While trainers can be helpful for instruction, motivation, and accountability, relying too heavily on them prevents self-learning and mastery. Patients/clients should aim to do exercises independently to build real-world proprioceptive skills eventually. Learning to swim without a wetsuit provides balance challenges to overcome, and working out without a trainer provides opportunities for self-correction and mastery. Here's a summary. The person could not properly do a simple pull-up or other advanced exercises without risking further injury. It took several months of gradual progress to build up strength and mobility to the point of being able to deadlift again, starting with just 95 pounds. The key to progressing safely is to go slower to go faster, making incremental improvements over time rather than rushing ahead too quickly. The step-up exercise is an excellent example of how to build hip strength and mobility in a safe, controlled way. It starts with body weight only and then progresses to using dumbbells or kettlebells as strength improves. Key points are to keep proper form, go slowly, and not use momentum. Barry's story shows how transformative focused exercise can be, even for someone in their late 70s who had neglected fitness for decades. Barry made it his new job to rebuild his body so he could enjoy life more. Barry worked up gradually from fundamental movements to more advanced strengthening exercises. His initial goals were to move without pain and reduce fall risk before progressing to wanting to do a pull-up. But he had to build up his strength and mobility through lunges, abdominal work, and balance exercises before attempting anything advanced. The key to Barry's progress was to start at a fundamental level and build up slowly under the guidance of his trainer. He was highly motivated but had to be reminded not to overdo it, especially at first. But through consistent work, he regained strength, mobility, and confidence in his body. The author finds discussions about diet and nutrition at social gatherings annoying and tries to avoid them. These topics need to be better understood scientifically, emotionally charged, and prone to the dissemination of misinformation. There are too many superficial and simplistic takes on diet and nutrition. The science is complex and limited. Nutrition gurus and self-proclaimed experts often make exaggerated claims not supported by evidence. The author used to advocate passionately for ketogenic and low-carb diets but has become disillusioned with the extreme tribalism in the nutrition field. Different diets have zealous proponents who insist their way of eating is superior without solid evidence. The author's views have evolved. He no longer believes there is one perfect diet for everyone. People's struggles with nutrition have taught him humility. He thinks the term diet should be avoided. Foods contain many chemical compounds that interact with our bodies in complex ways. These interactions depend on individual factors like genetics, environment, and lifestyle. A balanced and moderate approach to nutrition that emphasizes whole foods is optimal for most people. In summary, the key messages are: nutrition science is complex and limited. Simplistic claims should be viewed skeptically. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. Different diets suit different people. Moderation and balance focused on whole foods are sound guiding principles for most. Extremism and tribalism could be more helpful in the nutrition field. An open and humble mindset is superior. The goal of Nutrition 3.0 is to find personalized nutritional plans for individuals based on their health and metabolic needs. The two main problems it aims to address are undernourishment, insufficient protein and nutrients, and overnourishment, consuming too many calories. For many people, the solution is reducing calorie intake, increasing protein intake, and exercising. While nutrition can be an essential tool for health, exercise may extend lifespan and health span less than exercise. The basics of good nutrition are consuming adequate but only a few calories, enough protein and fat, essential vitamins and minerals, and avoiding toxins. Beyond that, we still have a lot to learn about nutrition. Much of our nutrition knowledge comes from epidemiological studies and clinical trials. Epidemiology looks for associations between habits and health outcomes in large groups but cannot prove causation. These studies often generate exaggerated or misleading diet headlines. They fail to account for confounding factors and the direction of causality. We can apply Sir Austin Bradford Hill's criteria, like effect size, to determine causation. Unlike the clear causal links found for smoking and exercise, nutrition studies often have small effect sizes. For example, a claim that red meat causes colon cancer had an effect size of just 17%, much weaker than the 1,000 to 2,500% increased lung cancer risk from smoking. In summary, while nutrition is necessary, we still have much to learn. We should be skeptical of exaggerated claims from epidemiological studies and look for large effect sizes and clinical evidence to determine causation. An evidence-based, personalized approach is needed to find the proper nutrition for each individual. Many epidemiological studies of nutrition need to be improved in their conclusions about foods and disease risk. For example, the observed associations between foods and disease risk, as measured by risk ratios or hazard ratios, are often weak, with less than a 50% increase in risk. The data collection method, food frequency questionnaires, is unreliable since people cannot accurately recall and report their diets. There are many confounding factors that epidemiology cannot account for, like underlying health, genetics, and socioeconomics. Experiments like clinical trials are better but also flawed. They can only be done for short periods, in small groups, or they need help ensuring compliance with the assigned diets. The large Women's Health Initiative study found no benefit of a low-fat diet. Still, the intervention and control groups' diets were quite similar, about 28% and 37% of calories from fat, respectively. In summary, nutrition research could be better, with much confusion and unreliable or inconclusive data. Epidemiology, in particular, is problematic, according to critics like John Ioannidis, who says, nutritional epidemiology is a scandal. It should just go into the waste bin. More rigorous methods are needed to draw causal conclusions. In short, nutritional research faces significant challenges in producing precise and reliable insights. Epidemiology is particularly problematic, and experiments also have substantial limitations. We have a long way to go to understand diet and health confidently. The author empathizes with patients who have tried various diets but remain dissatisfied with the results. He shares his experience trying a vegan diet during residency and failing to lose weight because he was essentially eating a lot of junk food, just without animal products. The standard American diet, SAD, dominates our food environment and is optimized to produce large amounts of inexpensive, shelf-stable, and palatable food. While this addresses some fundamental problems, it also fails to make the food harmless. SAD can harm health when consumed in excess due to an evolutionary mismatch. The key is finding an eating pattern tailored to each individual based on their unique biology and situation. There is no single diet that works for everyone. Some options to consider include a balanced diet with lean proteins, many plants, and moderate portions. This is a good default but may still need tweaking for some. A low-carb, high-fat diet like keto or Atkins. This can work well for those struggling with insulin resistance or diabetes but may not suit endurance athletes or the very lean. Intermittent fasting, which involves compressing the feeding window. This may improve metabolic flexibility and cellular repair processes but can be difficult for some to sustain long-term. A diet high in fat and plants, like the Mediterranean diet. The pre-dimed study suggested benefits for heart health, but results may vary based on individual factors. Olive oil and nuts in moderation are likely fine for most but not a panacea. In the end, the ideal diet is highly individual. The key is finding what optimizes health, mood, energy, sleep, and medical conditions based on your biology and situation. This may involve trial and error to determine what is sustainable and effective for you. The most important factors are that you can stick to it in the long run and that it helps you achieve your wellness goals. The standard American diet, SAD, is harmful and leads to excess calorie intake, weight gain, and health issues. There are three main strategies to counteract the SAD and reduce calorie intake: caloric restriction, CR, reducing total calories consumed. This method is most effective but requires meticulous intake tracking and is hard to stick to. It allows flexibility in food choices. Dietary restriction, DR, eliminating or reducing certain types of foods. This only works if the eliminated foods make up significant calories. It's easy to overeat other foods and not create a calorie deficit. Time restriction, DR, or intermittent fasting, limiting eating to specific periods. This can be easy to implement but may lead to inadequate protein or nutrient intake and loss of muscle mass. People can still overeat during allowed eating windows. A long-term study of rhesus monkeys found that those on a 25% calorie-restricted diet lived significantly longer than monkeys allowed to eat freely. This supported the idea that calorie restriction may enhance longevity in primates and, potentially, humans. However, a subsequent study found no difference in lifespan between calorie-restricted and control group monkeys. More research is needed, but calorie restriction is still considered the most promising method for enhancing health and longevity. The challenges make it practical, sustainable, and palatable for most people. Excess calorie intake is at the root of many health issues. Reducing intake through calorie restriction, Dietary changes, intermittent fasting, or a combination of these methods can have significant benefits. But every approach is challenging, and more work is needed to find interventions that work for the general population. Researchers conducted 2 long-term studies observing rhesus monkeys as they aged. In one study, monkeys on a calorie-restricted diet lived significantly longer. In the other study, there was no difference in lifespan between calorie-restricted and control monkeys. However, a closer look revealed some essential differences that provide valuable insights. The quality of the monkeys' diets was very different. The monkeys in the first study ate a lot of sugar and highly processed foods, while the monkeys in the second study ate a more natural diet with less sugar. The control monkeys in the first study had much higher rates of health issues like diabetes and cancer. This suggests diet quality and avoiding metabolic dysfunction are crucial to longevity. The degree of calorie restriction differed. The first study imposed severe calorie restrictions, while the second study's control monkeys ate slightly fewer calories naturally. This suggests even a modest calorie reduction from a healthy diet can have benefits. Severe calorie restriction may not be necessary or advisable, especially for older individuals. Overnutrition and excess calories are linked to health issues and reduced longevity. But for those with a healthy metabolism and diet, excessive calorie restriction may not provide added benefits. Moderation and avoiding overeating seem most important. These insights suggest an approach focused on diet quality and moderation rather than severe restriction. Choosing a balanced diet, limiting processed foods and sugar, staying metabolically healthy, and avoiding overeating may promote longevity. For some, more structured calorie restrictions and particular diet plans may also be beneficial, but they should be tailored to the individual. In summary, these monkey studies show that nutrition and calorie intake have a complex relationship with longevity and health span. But some clear lessons emerge around the importance of diet quality, metabolic health, moderation, and the avoidance of overnutrition. An approach focused on these factors may be the most promising path to optimizing lifespan and health span. Dietary restriction, DR, limits food intake in some way to achieve weight loss or other health benefits. Common approaches include low-carb, low-fat, intermittent fasting, and calorie restriction. DR can be effective for weight loss and metabolic health, but the approach needs to suit the individual. What works for one person may only work for one person. The key is finding a sustainable path. Risks of DR include overeating and malnutrition if not done correctly. Replacing one macronutrient with another, for example, carbs with fat, can have unintended effects. The 4 macronutrients, alcohol, carbs, protein, and fat, should be manipulated to find the optimal mix for each person. This requires considering how each impacts the body and the person's goals. Alcohol provides no nutritional value, disrupts metabolism, and often leads to overeating. Limiting alcohol is best for health and weight loss. Carbohydrates create confusion but are neither good nor bad. Some types are more nutritious than others. The amount and type of carbs depend on the individual and their health/weight goals. For weight loss and metabolic health, reducing carbohydrate intake often works well. But very low carb may only suit some. Carbs provide energy and nutrients, so they should not be eliminated from the diet. The optimal carb intake varies from person to person based on factors like activity level, health conditions, genetics, and more. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. Here's a summary. With continuous glucose monitoring, CGM, we now have a tool to help understand individual carbohydrate tolerance. CGM gives real-time data on blood glucose levels, showing how people respond to different foods. It can show historical averages and spikes, far better than a once-a-year fasting glucose test. CGM costs about $120 a month but can help avoid metabolic problems and save on costs like insulin. Studies show CGM lowers blood sugar and variability, which reduces health risks. Using CGM involves 2 phases, gaining insights into how food/activities affect glucose and behavior change to improve responses. CGM activates the Hawthorne effect, where people change behavior when monitored. CGM allows tailoring diets to individuals. Rather than rigid targets, we can see how people handle foods and adjust as needed. Some need more carb restriction, some can have more. The goal is average glucose under 100 mg/dl and small variability. The standard American diet spikes glucose, but some healthy meals also do for some people. The timing of carb intake also matters. The ideal diet depends on factors like lifestyle, age, and exercise. CGM helps understand and improve metabolic health, staving off disease. Better matching intake to demand and tolerance, CGM is a vital tool for precision medicine. In summary, continuous glucose monitoring provides real-time data to gain valuable insights into individual responses to foods and make personalized diet changes. CGM is a powerful tool for optimizing health and preventing disease by enabling tight control of blood sugar and tailored nutrition. Eating 150 grams of carbohydrates in one sitting affects blood sugar differently than spreading the same amount over the day or eating in a sugary cereal. Blood sugar control tends to be better in the morning. Activity level, sleep, and other factors heavily influence how well someone tolerates carbohydrates. Endurance athletes and those who exercise a lot can eat more carbs. Lack of sleep impairs blood sugar control. Continuous glucose monitoring, CGM, provides insights into how diet, exercise, sleep, and stress affect blood sugar. Refined carbs spike blood sugar more than unprocessed, high-fiber carbs. Rice and oatmeal also spike blood sugar despite being unrefined. CGM does not measure fructose but still spikes blood sugar when eaten with glucose. Exercise helps lower blood sugar, but high-intensity exercise temporarily increases it. Don't worry about glucose spikes during exercise. Lack of sleep increases blood sugar levels and spikes. Stress also raises blood sugar. Non-starchy veggies have little effect on blood sugar. High-fat, high-protein foods like eggs and ribs also don't spike blood sugar much, but lean proteins like chicken breast do slightly. Protein shakes, especially low-fat ones, spike blood sugar more. Stacking insights together, like being stressed, sleeping poorly, and not exercising, requires being very careful with diet to control blood sugar. Just tracking blood sugar with CGM helps improve eating habits by making people think twice about foods that spike blood sugar. Protein is essential for building and maintaining muscle. Without it, muscle loss accelerates with aging and is hard to rebuild. The recommended daily amount of 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight is too little, leading to muscle loss in older people. For most active adults, 1 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, spread over the day, helps maintain muscle. Most people need 0.25 to 0.3 grams of protein per pound daily, which works out to 100 to 150 grams for an average adult. This should be spread out over 3 to 4 meals. More protein may be needed for older adults or those trying to gain muscle. Plant-based protein is less bioavailable and lacks certain amino acids than animal protein. If relying solely on plant protein, consume a variety of sources and aim for higher amounts to account for this. Consider the charges of leucine, lysine, and methionine. Higher protein intake, especially in older adults, is associated with maintaining muscle mass and better health outcomes. Protein helps with satiety and may improve metabolism and insulin sensitivity. Dietary fat should make up the rest after accounting for protein and carbohydrates. Aim for a balance of fats. Limit saturated fat to 15 to 20% of calories. Aim for 50 to 55% of calories from monounsaturated fats like olive oil, and the rest from polyunsaturated fats like nuts and fish, with an emphasis on omega-3 fatty acids from fish or fish oil for brain and heart health. All fats contain a mix of saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated fats, so balancing fats is about tweaking the ratios in your overall diet, not eliminating entire groups. Marine-based omega-3 fats and monounsaturated fats are particularly beneficial. Measure red blood cell levels of EPA and DHA to determine if omega-3 intake is adequate. Aim for 8 to 12% of the total fatty acids in red blood cell membranes. Increase fish, nuts, and possibly fish oil supplements to boost levels if needed. Does this summary accurately reflect the key points about protein and dietary fats? Let me know if you want me to clarify or expand on any summary part. Limit omega-6 rich oils like corn, soybean, and sunflower oils. Increase omega-3 rich foods like fish and algae. Our ancestors ate more natural fats like butter, lard, tallow, olives, and coconuts. Modern processing allowed vegetable oils high in linoleic acid, omega-6, to flood the food supply. Linoleic acid in human fat has increased by 136% in 50 years. Reviews show increasing polyunsaturated fats, PUFAs, may slightly reduce heart disease risk but have little effect on mortality. Reducing saturated fat may reduce cardiovascular events by 17% but has little impact on mortality. Total dietary fat and fatty acid types show mainly no association with disease risk. The best fat balance depends on the individual. MUFAs like olive oil are probably best for most. The SFA/PUFA ratio depends on factors like lipid response and inflammation. Most people need omega-3 supplements. Fasting or time-restricted eating is a powerful but limited tool. It lowers insulin, clears fat from the liver, and causes ketosis and autophagy. But frequent long fasts have downsides and risks. Short-term eating windows can work, but a very narrow window, like 12 hours, is usually needed. Intermittent fastings, like 5 to 2 or alternate days, have limited evidence and risk muscle loss and rebound eating. Prolonged fasts of 3 to 5 days trigger ketosis and autophagy, but dangers and side effects limit usefulness for most. Yearly long fasts may have benefits, but more evidence is needed. Fasting must be used carefully and precisely based on individual factors. It can benefit some, exceedingly the metabolically unwell, but the risks and downsides outweigh the benefits for most people. A balanced, nutritious diet is safer and more sustainable. Intermittent fasting, such as limiting eating to an 8-hour window or alternate day fasting, can effectively reduce calorie intake and lose weight. However, the evidence for other benefits could be more extensive. Time-restricted feeding, like the limiting eating to an 8-hour window, can help reduce mindless snacking and overeating but may be insufficient for activating autophagy or other benefits of longer fasts. It also makes it hard to get enough protein. Some research shows limiting eating too earlier in the day may have benefits. But for most people, more than 8 hours without food is needed to get significant benefits. Alternate day fasting can lead to weight loss but may also cause loss of muscle mass and reduced activity. Prolonged, frequent fasting can be counterproductive. Dietary changes should support muscle mass and movement. Fasting under medical supervision can be helpful for some people, especially those who have not succeeded with other diets. The author describes a patient, Tom, who lost 67 pounds and improved his health by doing 1 week of hypocaloric fasting, around 700 calories, per month and following a low-carb diet the rest of the time. For Tom, fasting helped overcome hunger and insulin resistance when other diets did not. In summary, while some forms of intermittent fasting can aid weight loss and calorie reduction, the benefits of more prolonged fasts are limited for most people. Under medical guidance, hypocaloric fasts or fasts of longer duration can be helpful in some cases, especially for those with significant metabolic issues. But diets should always aim to preserve muscle mass and activity levels. Fasting is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Nutrition alone cannot cure all ills or dramatically extend lifespan, though it remains an essential component of health. Inadequate nutrition can do more harm than good food can do good. For already metabolically healthy people, nutrition can only help so much. The most critical factors for health are energy balance and managing calorie intake. Various diets like calorie restriction, dietary restriction, and time restriction are just tools to achieve energy balance and correct being overnourished. For most people, the goal should be sustainably reducing overall calorie intake, cutting out foods that spike blood sugar too much while maintaining adequate protein intake and muscle mass. The ideal nutrition plan is highly individual and depends on one's unique risk factors, metabolism, and sustainability. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. Other factors like exercise, sleep, and managing stress are also crucial for health. Nutrition alone is not enough. The key is staying caught up in the minute details of any particular diet. Overthinking nutrition can do more harm than good. The most important thing is developing a balanced and sustainable approach tailored to your needs. In summary, the key messages are: focus on energy balance and calorie control. Keep protein intake adequate. Reduce spikes in blood sugar. Develop an individualized and sustainable plan. Don't obsess about nutrition to exclude other health factors. A balanced and holistic approach is ideal. Nutrition is essential but needs to be more sufficient on its own. Sleep is crucial for health, cognitive function, memory, and emotional well-being. Chronic lack of sleep can have devastating effects. The author learned the importance of sleep the hard way by experiencing scary episodes of falling asleep while driving due to extreme sleep deprivation during his medical residency. At the time, many doctors dismissed the need to reduce resident work hours and increase sleep. Now we know that lack of sleep impairs function as much as being legally drunk. Research shows that less than 7 hours of sleep per night increases health risks like heart disease, diabetes, hormonal imbalance, and cognitive decline. While we sleep, our brain processes thoughts, memories, and emotions. Sleep is essential for brain health and preventing Alzheimer's disease. The fact that sleep occurs in all animals and we are utterly vulnerable while sleeping shows how crucial it is for survival. Evolution would have eliminated the need for sleep if it wasn't essential. The importance of sleep was long dismissed in science and society. Now we know rest is fundamental for health, just like stability is for strength. Prioritizing sleep has dramatically benefited the author's health, cognitive abilities, mood, and productivity. Most people need more high-quality rest to experience these benefits. Lack of sleep should be addressed with the same importance as diet, fitness, and other health factors. Rest is not wasted time but rather essential for well-being. Most adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep daily for good health and daytime performance. Less or more sleep can cause problems. Poor sleep impairs physical and cognitive abilities, including endurance, strength, reaction times, and decision-making. It's like a performance-depleting drug. Good sleep, on the other hand, enhances performance, like a performance-enhancing drug. We tend to underestimate the negative impacts of poor sleep on ourselves because we adapt to chronic sleep deprivation. But poor sleep has damaging long-term effects. Poor sleep wreaks havoc on our metabolism and hormone levels, accelerating aging and increasing health risks. It causes insulin resistance, raises stress hormones like cortisol, and alters levels of hunger and satiety hormones like leptin and ghrelin. This promotes overeating, weight gain, and diseases like diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and NAFLD. Poor sleep activates our sympathetic nervous system, keeping us in a state of chronic stress and fight or flight. This raises blood pressure and heart rate, increasing the risk of hypertension and cardiovascular disease over time. In summary, poor sleep has significant adverse health consequences through complex interactions with metabolism, hormones, stress levels, and health behaviors. Good sleep, on the other hand, has substantial benefits for health, performance, and longevity. Quality sleep is vital for overall wellness and disease prevention. Inadequate sleep over the long term is associated with an increased risk of heart disease and other health issues. Short sleep, less than 6 hours, is linked to a 20 to 30% higher risk of heart attack. Good sleep helps mitigate genetic risk factors for heart disease. Sleep is essential for health, especially brain health and cognition. When we sleep, our body and brain go through various stages marked by different brain wave patterns. Non-REM, NREM, sleep, includes light sleep and deep sleep. In a deep sleep, brain waves slow, heart rate drops, and body temperature decrease. Deep sleep dominates the night's first half and is essential for memory consolidation and brain health. REM, rapid eye movement, sleep, eye movements accelerate, and brain waves resemble wakefulness. Most dreaming occurs in REM sleep. REM sleep is essential for learning, creativity, problem solving, and emotional processing. It helps separate emotions from memories. Lack of REM sleep is linked to difficulty reading emotions and PTSD. Sleep cycles between NREM and REM, lasting about 90 minutes. We can briefly wake up between cycles. Deep sleep is essential for brain health. During deep sleep, the brain's glymphatic system clears amyloid beta, tau, and other waste from the brain. Lack of deep sleep is linked to a buildup of amyloid beta and tau, which can promote Alzheimer's and dementia. Lack of sleep and Alzheimer's disease can become a vicious cycle. Alzheimer's patients experience less deep sleep, REM sleep, and disrupted circadian rhythms. In summary, good sleep is vital for health, cognition, and brain health across the lifespan. Poor sleep has significant adverse health consequences. Prioritizing sleep is crucial for well-being and longevity. Sleep disturbances and Alzheimer's disease are deeply interconnected. Poor sleep quality and sleep apnea are risk factors for Alzheimer's, while Alzheimer's can also cause sleep problems. Successfully treating sleep problems may delay or prevent cognitive decline. Getting good quality sleep, especially in middle age, is essential for brain health and reducing Alzheimer's risk. Getting deep sleep declines with age, starting in our 20s or 30s. This may be partly due to decreased growth hormone, which peaks in adolescence and worsens over time. Deep sleep is essential in our 40s and 60s to prevent Alzheimer's. There are many prescription and over-the-counter sleep aids, but most do not improve sleep quality or architecture. Drugs like Ambien and benzodiazepines often induce unconsciousness without deep sleep or REM benefits. An exception is low-dose trazodone, which can enhance sleep quality. The first steps to improving your sleep are accepting the need for good sleep, assessing your sleep quality and habits, establishing a calming bedtime routine, limiting screen time and stimulation before bed, keeping a consistent sleep schedule, and making your bedroom calm, dark, and quiet. If lifestyle changes don't help, you may need to see a doctor about potential sleep disorders like insomnia, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, or narcolepsy. If left untreated, they can negatively impact your health, mood, and cognition. In summary, prioritizing high-quality sleep, especially as we age, is one of the best things we can do for our health and to support brain and cognitive well-being. Sleep problems are common, and it's helpful for people to assess their sleep quality and habits. Several questionnaires can help determine if someone may have a sleep disorder or poor sleep hygiene. People have different chronotypes. Some are morning people, and some are night owls. This is partly genetic. It's essential to understand your chronotype. It's important to rule out or address medical issues like sleep apnea, which can have serious health consequences. The keys to better sleep are: create an ideal sleep environment, dark, relaxed, and free of electronics and distractions. Use room darkening curtains, turn off lights and devices, and keep the room temperature around 65 F. Limit screen time, social media, and light exposure before bed. The blue light they emit inhibits melatonin production and makes it harder to fall asleep. Limit alcohol consumption, especially in the evening. Although alcohol may initially make you tired, it impairs sleep quality and makes it harder to stay asleep. Cut back on caffeine, especially later in the day. Caffeine is a stimulant that blocks sleep-inducing chemicals in the brain. Drinking too much, especially in the afternoon and evening, makes it harder to fall asleep. Maintain a consistent sleep schedule, even on weekends. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every day helps to keep your circadian rhythm in check and optimize your sleep. Practice relaxation techniques like meditation, deep breathing, or a warm bath before bed. A relaxing routine can help calm your mind and body, making it easier to fall asleep. Exercise daily, but not right before bed. Exercise is excellent for sleep but can be stimulating, so avoid it within a few hours of bedtime. Morning or afternoon exercise is best. Caffeine has a half-life of up to 6 hours, so consuming it in the afternoon or evening can disrupt sleep at night. Slow metabolizers of caffeine should stop drinking it by noon. Sleep pressure refers to our need for sleep. It's essential to cultivate enough sleep pressure to fall asleep easily at night, but not too much, such as through napping during the day. Exercise, sunlight exposure, and meditation during the day can help increase sleep pressure and prepare your body for sleep at night. Avoiding screens, stressful activities, and heavy meals in the evening also helps. Tips for better sleep include: don't drink alcohol, keeping a cool, dark room, go to bed early and wake up at the same time daily, and avoid obsessing about your sleep. If you have trouble sleeping, first ensure good sleep hygiene. If problems persist, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, can effectively establish healthy sleep habits and reduce anxiety about sleep. Sleep is essential for health, cognition, and daytime performance. Like exercise, it provides many benefits and should be addressed. The key points are that cultivating the right amount of sleep pressure during the day and maintaining a consistent and relaxing bedtime routine are essential for sleep. Addressing everyday habits that can interfere with sleep, using CBTI if needed, and valuing sleep as a health and performance enhancer can help establish good sleep. The author was admitted to a treatment facility called the Bridge to Recovery in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Although outwardly successful, the author was emotionally out of control and headed for rock bottom. A traumatic event occurred a few months earlier when the author's infant son suddenly stopped breathing and had to be renewed. The author did not return home for 10 days. The author's psychiatrist friend urged him to go to the treatment facility and recognize signs of trauma and addiction in the author's behavior. The author was reluctant to go to the facility but eventually agreed after his wife pleaded. Given how his emotional state could have affected his physical health and longevity, the author considers himself lucky to be alive. The author's journey at the treatment facility transformed his life and view of longevity. He now realizes emotional health and physical health are closely connected. Examples of how mental health affects lifespan include suicide and stress-related health issues. The author cites a man who survived jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge as an example of realizing too late that his problems were fixable. The author indicates many people slow roll into misery in a way that reduces lifespan. The author will explore the importance of emotional and mental health for health span and longevity. The key points are: mental and emotional health is deeply connected to physical health and longevity. The author had a traumatic experience that led to emotional issues threatening his health and relationships. With treatment, the author gained awareness and worked to improve his mental and emotional health. The author now recognizes the daily effort required to maintain emotional health and its importance for lifespan and overall well-being. The passage describes how many people suffer slow, premature deaths due to poor mental and emotional health that erodes physical health over time. Many turn to alcohol, drugs, or other reckless behaviors to cope with mental anguish, and overdoses and addiction-related diseases have surged. The author argues that emotional health is as important as physical health for longevity and life satisfaction. The author shares his own experience recognizing and addressing his poor emotional health. He focused only on physical health for a long time and ignored his mental state. His therapist pointed out that he was depressed, asking, "Why would you want to live longer if you're so unhappy?" The author went to a treatment center called The Bridge to work on his emotional health. At first, he struggled to open up, but eventually shared his life story, including experiences of childhood abuse, with the group. He initially tried to minimize the trauma of his abuse by arguing it ultimately set him on a good path in life. But his therapist pointed out the abuse began when he was only 5 years old, the same age as his son, and asked if he would be okay with his son experiencing that. This realization allowed the author to fully recognize the impact of his trauma and begin the work of healing. The treatment center uses a trauma tree framework which sees undesirable adult behaviors as adaptations to childhood trauma. The full impacts of trauma may not be immediately apparent but manifest over decades. Treatment involves unpacking decades of life to understand the roots of current behaviors and mental states. This challenging work was transformative for the author, allowing him to acquire the tools he needed to improve his emotional health and relationships. The passage highlights how mental and emotional anguish can significantly impact longevity and quality of life. Recognizing and addressing the root causes of poor mental health, often in childhood experiences, is challenging but crucial. For the author, this meant facing a lifetime of avoidance and trauma to build emotional health and connection. Trauma can be categorized into big T trauma, for example, rape, or little t trauma, for example, alcoholic parent. Little trauma, while seemingly minor, can accumulate and significantly impact a person. Trauma leads to a feeling of helplessness, which can profoundly damage a child's development. However, adversity and trauma are not the same. Adversity can build resilience, whereas trauma tends to lead to maladaptation. The effects of trauma manifest in 4 ways: addiction, codependency, survival strategies, for example, anger, and attachment disorders. The key is addressing the root causes of these effects. The medical system tends to focus on diagnosis and prescription, which does not work as well for mental health. Mental health and emotional health are different. Emotional health is complex and personal, requiring a tailored, long-term approach. Emotional health requires consistent effort and practice over the long run, just like physical health. However, people often fail to recognize their emotional health issues. The author left treatment at the bridge after 2 weeks, despite the therapist's recommendation to stay longer. Progress was slow in the future as the author worked to process insights and heal relationships. Finding the right therapist was challenging but eventually fruitful. The key message is that trauma and emotional health issues require a personalized, long-term approach. Quick fixes do not work. Recognizing the problem and working to address the root causes is essential to healing and growth. The author read Terrence Real's book I Don't Want to Talk About It, which discusses how men are socialized to conceal their depression. The author found the book very relatable and insightful. Real grew up with a violent father who passed on depression to him. Real became a therapist to understand and overcome his trauma. The author worked with Real and realized he had been clinically depressed for much of his life without realizing it. The author tended to isolate himself and feel angry, which Real said was typical of covert male depression. The author learned his anger and trauma affected his family, especially his kids. Real taught him that kids internalize their parents' anger even if it's not directed at them. Trauma also passes down through generations. The author wanted to overcome this. He has taught the author strategies to improve his relationships, like thinking of them as an emotional ecosystem he didn't want to poison. The author spent more time with family, limited work, went on vacation, and practiced reframing, seeing other perspectives. The author read The Road to Character, which distinguishes resume virtues like jobs from eulogy virtues like how you treat people. The author realized he lacked eulogy virtues and worked to develop them. Though the author improved as a husband and father, he still loathed himself internally without realizing it or understanding why. He knew many men felt the same way. In summary, the author learned about the roots of male depression and strategies to build healthier relationships. But he still struggled with self-hatred, showing the long journey of overcoming trauma and developing emotional health. Despite outward success, the author struggled with deep feelings of inadequacy, self-hatred, and anger. Even a successful patient admitted needing to feel great to avoid feeling worthless. The author's rage and need to criticize himself caused significant distress and impacted his relationships. The COVID-19 pandemic and increased workload exacerbated the author's struggles. His episodes of rage and suicidality led his loved ones to insist he enters residential treatment. He attended psychological counseling services, PICES, for 3 weeks of intensive therapy. Initially, the author struggled to come up with positive affirmations about himself. After 19 days of therapy, he had a breakthrough in understanding how his childhood experiences of lack of protection, safety, and trust led to his self-loathing as an adult. He realized his inner child did not deserve to feel that way. This allowed him to craft 47 affirmations about himself, showing his progress. The author says long-term change requires learning and practicing tools to monitor and manage emotions. Quick fixes and singular experiences are not enough. Medication, mindfulness, and psychedelics can help but are not the only solution. The work is complex and ongoing. In summary, the author has grappled with feelings of self-hatred and inadequacy stemming from childhood experiences. Intensive therapy helped him gain insight into their roots and develop a healthier relationship with himself, though it is a lifelong process. The key breakthrough was accepting that he did not deserve to feel the way he did as a child and learning to show himself compassion. Modalities like medication and therapy can be helpful to adjuncts, but natural recovery requires deep self-exploration over a long time. Quick fixes do not lead to lasting change. The author worked to avoid meltdowns and understand the warning signs that could lead to blow-ups, like the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. This is similar to preventive health. The author used dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, which focuses on learning and practicing skills to regulate emotions and handle distress. It aims to break the chain reaction of adverse events leading to negative feelings, thoughts, and actions. DBT has 4 pillars: mindfulness, emotion regulation, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness. The author focused most on the first 2. Mindfulness helps create distance between thoughts/emotions and reactions. Emotion regulation helps recognize and manage emotional states. Mindfulness showed the author that suffering often comes from thoughts about the past or future, not the present moment. It helps reframe situations in a calmer, wiser way. It also revealed how harsh self-judgment can be. Recording self-talk and imagining a friend in the same case helped change this. Emotion regulation was challenging for the author, but DBT helped increase the ability to recognize and manage emotions. Anger, in particular, had caused issues in relationships. Regulating emotions reduced reactivity and improved relationships. Daily practice of DBT skills led to gradual but meaningful change over time through deep self-reflection and learning new habits. There is no quick fix. Real change requires ongoing effort and commitment. The author struggles with feelings of shame, especially when yelling at his kids. This shame prevents him from reconciling with them and worsens the situation. Now he is better able to recognize this pattern and stop it. Dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, has taught the author skills to manage his emotions and distressing situations better. Some techniques he uses include: they induce abrupt sensory changes, like a cold shower, to calm down. Slow, deep breathing to slow his nervous system. Opposite action, doing the opposite of what his emotions are telling him to do. By changing his behavior, he can change his mood and emotions. Regular exercise, like rucking, hiking with a heavy backpack, helps cultivate calmness and mindfulness. Weekly therapy sessions are essential. He discusses events in detail and works to understand the root causes of issues. Journaling also helps. Following a routine of green light behaviors and self-care, even when he doesn't feel like it, and forgives himself for mistakes and imperfections. Progress happens over time. The most critical first step is believing that real change is possible. The author used to think he was inherently defective, but now he knows that isn't true. Change starts with an open and willing mindset. Asking for help and being vulnerable is difficult but necessary. The stigma around mental health and the difficulty of admitting you need help are obstacles that must be overcome. The author has learned that emotional health and longevity are deeply connected. Longevity means little without happiness, good relationships, and a life worth living. His obsession with longevity was fear of death, but now he sees that emotional health and living meaningfully are most important. The author discusses how he was obsessed with longevity and avoiding death for much of his life. He followed a rigorous diet, exercise, and monitoring regimens to optimize his health. However, he realized this quest was making him miserable and causing harm to his relationships. His obsession with longevity was rooted in a fear of dying and regret over past mistakes, not a desire to live well and enjoy life's moments. A friend's near-death experience made the author realize that longevity means little without meaning, purpose, and relationships. His friend said people become old when they stop thinking about the future and only dwell on the past. The author realized he needed to shift his mindset to focus on living well and embracing life rather than just trying to avoid death. The author acknowledges the many people who helped research, write, and publish this book, including his co-author, researchers, experts who reviewed sections, patients, podcast guests, friends, and family. His obsession with details and desire for perfection posed challenges, but this book came to fruition with patience and support. The key message is that longevity by itself means little. We must live purposefully, focus on emotional and relational well-being, and embrace life rather than dwell on past regrets or fear of death. Living long is secondary to living well. We can stay young with meaningful relationships and purpose even as we grow older.